Chapter 23. Karma City? Viscount Leslie and Butler Brunei, who had been standing on the side the entire time, looked at each other before saying in a surprised voice, "I never thought that you would have already sold the magic fans to other cities. This really is unexpected." Sui laughed and shook his head. "Strictly speaking, we didn't sell them. Rather, they came to us." "Oh, what do you mean?" Viscount Leslie asked in a curious voice. "Lord Viscount, you just said that there's a limit to the number of residents in Banda City. Even adding in the villages outside Banda City, there's a limit to the demand for magic fans. So we already had plans to spread the magic fans outside Banda City. But we didn't want to sell it this early because the time wasn't right. Why isn't it suitable?" Viscount Leslie was a bit confused. If someone is willing to buy it, could it be that you're not willing to sell it? "No, it's not like this. This is just my long-term consideration." So he put down the juice and decided to properly explain this to Viscount Leslie. Through today's short contact, his impression of Viscount Leslie had greatly changed. He felt that he wasn't as useless as those normal noble children. Rather, he had his own ideas and knowledge. Then for this kind of person, he was willing to have a deeper discussion with him. Although on the surface, we need to sell the magic fans to a wider market, which is very beneficial to our development, we can't rush this matter right now. But this can't be rushed because we have to increase our production at the same time as the sales increase. Otherwise, if our output can't keep up and we can't complete the orders we receive, not only will we lose our sales volume and market share, the most serious thing is that it will be a large hit to our reputation. If we lose our reputation, our foundation will be damaged and it will have a fatal impact on our future development. Viscount Leslie thought about it before asking with knit brows. "Then why can't you increase your output? Is it because you don't have enough people?" "But I've heard Brunei say that your workshop only has 30 students from Baron Ricto Magic Academy working, so it can't be considered full production at all. You just said that you can produce 150 magic fans a day. Then I feel that if you're willing to recruit some more people, even if it's not that much, you can at least produce 200 a day, right?" "Lord Viscount, you have forgotten a very important question." So he shook his head gently. "What is it?" "That's quality." Although the production process of the magic fan was very simple, up until now, there were very few people who had the ability to make it. Or to be more accurate, there was only me who could make the magic fan. Although the students I hired can take on the most important task of drawing the magic array, I'm the only one who can do the actual installation and debugging. This created a fact that made me very helpless, which was that the output of the magic fan depended on my work efficiency. However, my energy is limited after all. Now that the production has reached its limit, there is no way to increase it. Viscount Leslie stared at Sui for a while. "This isn't right. Since you can give the most important work of drawing the magic array to those students, it's impossible that you can't give the other work to others. I think you're afraid of revealing the core secrets, so you're not willing to do this at all, right?" "Lord Viscount, you're looking down on me too much." Sui revealed a faint smile. "I already said it earlier, the production process of the magic fan isn't complicated, so it isn't considered a secret for me at all. Only the work I'm in charge of right now involves a lot of troublesome knowledge, so it's hard to teach it to others in a short period of time. But I believe that this situation won't last for long. Those students have already gradually grasped some of the main points, and I believe that after a while, they will be able to take over my work. When that time comes, you will find that the production of the magic fan will greatly increase." After saying this, Sui paused before revealing a mysterious smile. "Other than that, I don't mind revealing a real secret to you. It is that if nothing unexpected happens, the new generation of magic fans will appear." Viscount Leslie was stunned. "New generation? There's a different kind of magic fan? How is it different from the magic fans you've sold before?" "As for what's different, I'm afraid it's not something that can be explained in a few words. When a new generation of magic fans appear, you'll naturally know." Sui deliberately kept him in suspense. "Moreover, I can tell you that the new generation of magic fans will use a completely different process and production process, so its production will far surpass the current magic fans. When that time comes, it will be time for us to push the magic fans onto a wider market. Viscount Leslie looked at Sue E for a while before slowly shaking his head with a smile and saying, "When I saw the plan that Butler Brunei gave me at first, I thought that you were just a crazy person talking big. But now it seems like I've really underestimated you." "Very good. Since you didn't disappoint me, then we can discuss this in depth. Brunei, take out the contract." Butler Brunei gave a bow before turning to leave. "Contract?" So he looked at the confident Viscount Leslie and slightly knit his brows. Could it be that this fellow wanted to cause trouble? After a while, Butler Brunei came back with a document in his hand. Viscount Leslie took the document and placed it in front of Sue E. "Take a look. You can ask any questions you have." Sue E looked over the document in a confused manner and found that it was a contract for renting land. It was for the piece of land he was currently renting. But compared to the first contract that both sides signed, this contract was much more detailed and much more favorable. In the previous contract, Sue E and Hines only had the right to rent land for a year from Viscount Leslie, and they didn't have any other rights. They would be restricted by Viscount Leslie, and if Viscount Leslie was unhappy one day, there wouldn't be a problem if he chased them away. But in this contract, it clearly stated that Sue Yi's side had the right to use the land and Viscount Leslie only had the right to use it. This also meant that it wasn't a problem for Sue E to do whatever he wanted on that piece of land. He didn't even need Viscount Leslie's approval. At the same time, Viscount Leslie had extended the contract from 1 year to 5 years and even lowered the rent. It was actually half a hectare per year, which was 50 gold coins. Sue E carefully looked over the contract, and after confirming that he didn't miss anything, he put down the contract. After thinking about it, he asked, "Lord Viscount, do you have any conditions?" A trace of praise flashed in Viscount Leslie's eyes as he said with a faint smile, "If I didn't raise any conditions, would you believe me?" Sue E smiled without saying a thing. "Ha ha, all right, I won't joke around. Of course there are conditions, but I feel that you won't reject me. Ask the Lord Viscount to tell me. This condition is very simple, which is that I want to become a shareholder. Pay attention, it isn't as simple as giving me 10% of the shares like before. Rather, I want to truly participate. In the future, whether you make the magic fan or anything else, I have the right to know and give my opinion. Of course, I won't force my way in for no reason. Other than providing the land, I can also inject funds into your new flyer. Other than that, I can also use my connections to open the market for you. For example, I can bring this magic fan to the capital city, Anvilmar City, to sell. How about it? What do you think of this condition?" Suyi's expression didn't change. After being silent for a bit, he asked with a serious look, "Lord Viscount, I want to ask, when you raise this condition, are you using your identity as a noble or as a normal merchant?" "Oh, is there a difference?" Hearing Sue Yi's strange question, Viscount Leslie was very interested. "There is a large difference." Sue Yi nodded. "If you raise this idea as a noble, then according to the rules of the kingdom's royal parliament, you must place your shares under the supervision of the royal parliament and can't hide anything. Like this, our company will have to disclose many things to the royal parliament. This is something that I can't agree to, so I can only apologize to you." "Then what if it's as a normal merchant?" "If it's as a normal merchant." Sue E revealed a sly smile. "Then in terms of business, the condition you raised is very attractive. But I must clearly tell you that there is no problem in obtaining a portion of the shares of a new flyer, but you can only have a small portion. This also means that you only have the right to propose and not the right to make decisions in the company. What do you think about this?" Butler Brunei on the side knit his brows and angrily said, "Audacious. The Lord Viscount is willing to invest in your small company. That is your honor. You actually dare say that the Lord Viscount doesn't have the right to make decisions? You are simply bold." Suyi's expression didn't change. He completely ignored Butler Brunei and maintained his faint smile as he looked at Viscount Leslie. Viscount Leslie didn't reveal a surprised expression at all. Rather, he nodded and asked, "I understand your thoughts. But Sue E, how can you guarantee that you won't make the wrong decision? To put it simply, how can you guarantee my benefits?" He revealed a smile and actually winked at Viscount Leslie as he said, "Lord Viscount, you actually believe in me, right?" Viscount Leslie was stunned before breaking out in laughter. "Good, good. You really are an interesting person. Brunei, that's enough. Give him the other contract." Took the contract from Brunei and found that it really was a contract to invest in a company. The contract stated that Viscount Leslie would use his territory as a share in the new flyer, increasing his 10% share to 30%. At the same time, the contract clearly stated that Viscount Leslie didn't have any right to make decisions for the company. Everything in the company would be decided by and Viscount Leslie couldn't interfere. The other thing that needed to be mentioned was that this was a private contract, which meant that it wasn't protected by the kingdom's laws. But it was because of this that relaxed. After carefully reading the contract, looked up at the smiling Viscount Leslie and reached out his right hand. "Lord Viscount, let's work together." Viscount Leslie also reached out his hand with a smile and tightly shook Suyi's hand. It's a happy cooperation. Chapter 24. When he left Viscount Leslie's manor, it was just past noon. He looked up at the burning sun and decided that it was better if he didn't go back to the factory. He had Butler Brunei send a horse carriage driver to send him back to Banta City. With the hot weather, Banta City was as silent as usual. He looked around in the horse carriage and found that there were many houses and shops with magic fans turning. So he couldn't help revealing a smile. In less than a month, the magic fan had become popular in and out of Banta City. Other than those rich families who could lay down large-scale frost arrays, if any family had 1 or 2 magic fans, they wouldn't be able to raise their heads in front of their neighbors. According to Heinz's statistics, up until now, the new flyer had sold a total of 2,371 Xinfei brand magic fans. Taking away all the costs, the net profit was 2,200 gold coins. Taking away the dividends Heinz received and the dividends Viscount Leslie received from his 10% share, Suyi's income was a high 1,500 gold coins. And this was just his net income in a single month. It had to be known, the average income of a person in Banta City was only 10 gold coins a month, so their income was less than 200 gold coins. With Rim's income of 30 gold coins a month at the Carmilla Magic Tower, he could be considered a high-income family in Banta City. But compared to the current it was without a doubt several times worse. It was no wonder Heinz kept urging to quit his job at the Magic Tower and focus on running the company. The reason why the production of magic fans couldn't increase was because Suyi's energy was limited. Although his work at the Magic Tower wasn't considered heavy, it still used up a large part of his energy. From Heinz's point of view, this was simply a huge waste. But firmly rejected Heinz's suggestions every time. Heinz didn't have that kind of foresight, but could not have it. After getting off the carriage, threw a gold coin to the coachman and walked into the Magic Tower with bags of various sizes. Along the way, he ran into many colleagues in the Magic Tower. When they saw they all smiled at him. During this time, Suyi's magic fan was selling like hotcakes in Banta City. Even if the magicians of the Magic Tower didn't care about mundane matters, they had still heard about it. They also indirectly recognized this black-haired kid that they weren't familiar with before. However, in the eyes of the magicians in the Mage Tower, was more or less neglecting his duties. As a magician, instead of properly studying magic, he ran off to make this so-called magic fan. This was simply throwing away the face of magicians. He turned a blind eye to the strange gazes mixed with smiles. He maintained his smile and went straight back to the research room. As soon as they saw enter, several young people in the research room immediately cheered and rushed over. They unceremoniously snatched a few packages from Suyi's hands and deftly opened them. "It's green bean juice again? I say, don't you have any new tricks?" A colleague didn't forget to complain. Laughed, "What? Tired of eating it? All right, I'll remember to change it for something new next time." Don't listen to his nonsense. It's already good that there's something to eat. Another female colleague pushed away the complaining colleague. Sue, you bring this kind of thing back each time. It really makes us embarrassed. It's nothing, it's just some small things that aren't worth much. I'm always on leave, so the work in the research room has been shared by you all. This can be considered an apology from me. You're too polite. Humph. You also know. A cold snort suddenly broke the harmonious atmosphere on this side. Sue, don't think that you can show off here just because you've earned some money from the magic fan. Don't forget, you are a magician in the end. We magicians still have to rely on our own magic power. Next month is the Sorcerer's Guild's certification exam, and I've heard that you still haven't passed the lowest level exam. If you still can't pass next month, that would be a joke. Sue, looked over and found that the one who said this was really Cimarrot, who was ranked second in terms of magic power in the research room. Since Sue entered the research room, this Cimarrot had been raising his eyebrows at him, disliking him in every way. Sue didn't know what was going on at first, but after asking around from his colleagues, he found out that this Cimarrot had always had ideas about Steel. After knowing that Sue had entered the magic tower through Steel's back door, he thought that Sue and Steel had a special relationship, so naturally he didn't like Sue. For this kind of person, Sue knew that the more you paid attention to them, the more they would come. So he ignored them and treated them like they didn't exist. After a long time, Cimarrot felt that there was no meaning in jumping around by himself. Adding the fact that Sue didn't have any special relationship with Steel, he gradually stopped. He never thought that he would suddenly jump out today. Hey, Cimarrot, aren't your words too hard to hear? The female colleague who had spoken up for Sue said in a dissatisfied voice. Although Sue hasn't passed the certification exam yet, we've all been colleagues for so long. So how could we not know what kind of strength Sue has? If it was up to me, he would definitely pass the exam next month. Humph. Latte. Sue, he only brings you a few small things each time, and you're already bought over? You're saying that he will definitely pass the exam? So what? I think that he is at most a primary grade magician, right? Could it be that you think a primary grade magician is very powerful? Sue, he stretched out his hand to stop Latte, who still wanted to argue. He glanced at Cimarrot and said with a smile, Senior Cimarrot, my magic strength is far inferior to yours. I don't think we need to talk about this anymore. Cimarrot didn't think that Sue would actually admit that he was inferior to him in front of so many people. He stared blankly for a moment and was too embarrassed to continue arguing. He could only snort and sit back down. It was unknown if he had started to concentrate on his work. What kind of person is this? Latte disdainfully glanced at Cimarrot and lightly snorted. Then she frowned and whispered to Sue, Sue, why did you say that you were inferior to him? Isn't this encouraging his arrogance? The problem is that I am indeed inferior to him. Sue smiled and didn't look angry at all. Latte, I'm an engineer. The most basic requirement is to be realistic and not have any falsehood. Latte unhappily glared at Sue. You are quite calm. Sue faintly smiled and looked left and right, but didn't see Rim and Wella's figures. The two of them asked for leave together today. I think they most likely went on a date. Latte giggled. Speaking of which, that guy Rim isn't so stubborn. At least he knows to invite Wella on a date. So it's like this. What a pity. I still have something to talk to Wella about today. Sue, helplessly said. You have something to talk to Wella about? Latte looked at Sue with a doubtful look before suddenly coming over in a mysterious manner and saying in a low voice, Hey, Sue, don't blame me for not reminding you. It's best if you don't find Wella alone in the future. Although Rim didn't say it, I can see that he is very unhappy because of this. Sue, stared blankly. I'm only looking for Wella because of work. That won't do. Latte resolutely said. Men can also be jealous, so you need to be careful. Sue, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After thinking about it, he could only shake his head with a bitter smile. All right, I'll be careful in the future. Since Wella wasn't here, Sue, lost his goal in coming to the laboratory. He returned to his seat and quickly finished all the work he had accumulated, but it was already close to getting off work. Sue, hesitated a bit before leaving the laboratory and stepping onto the magic stairs. The top floor of the magic tower was still cool. After Sue, reported his name, the door to great magician Camilla's laboratory automatically opened and revealed the space inside. Sue, you actually didn't ask for leave today? Great magician Camilla seemed like he had just finished some magic research and was taking a short break. When he saw Sui come in, he even made a small joke out of interest. Sui revealed an awkward smile. He knew that he had taken too much time off, and even great magician Camilla knew about it. Speak. What are you looking for me for? Great magician Camilla asked. There are two things. The first thing is to express my gratitude to you, great magician. Thank me for what? Great magician Camilla said with a frown. Thank you for giving me the recommendation for the Sorcerer's Guild certification exam. Giving it to you? A trace of doubt appeared on great magician Camilla's face, but then he thought of something and nodded. It's nothing, your magic talent isn't bad, so it's quite appropriate to recommend you. Anyway, this recommendation won't have much use, at most it'll make it a bit more convenient for you, so there's no need to specially thank me. Let's talk about the other thing. No matter what, I still have to thank you. Sui gave a serious bow to great magician Camilla to express his gratitude before taking out a blueprint from his chest. The other thing is that I have some questions for you. Another magic array? Great magician Camilla took the blueprint and looked it over before saying with a soft sigh, this seems to be a frost array. You really are, your excellency, great magician. You can recognize it with a single glance. Sui immediately flattered him. That's right, this is indeed a frost array. Accurately speaking, it's a modified version of the frost array. I can see that, but why are you changing this frost array? Great magician Camilla pointed at the blueprint. Great magician Camilla pointed at the blueprint. Why do I feel that the modification you made to this frost array is a bit similar to the revolving wind array you modified before? Sui was filled with admiration as he happily said, Your Excellency, great magician, you really are too powerful. You can see the core of this magic array with a single glance. That's right, my goal in modifying this frost array is the same as the revolving wind array from before, which is to let this frost array have a long-lasting output. What do you think of the effects of this array? The changes aren't bad, but there are a few small problems. Great magician Camilla suddenly looked up. Great magician Camilla suddenly looked up. Sui, you wouldn't be planning on using this frost array to make something, right? Just like that magic fan? Sui nodded with a faint smile. That's right. What I want to make is the magic air conditioner. Chapter 25. In the blink of an eye, it was August and it was midsummer. The weather became hotter, and when the sun came out, the magic fan workshop was like a steamer. Not long after, the 30 students working hard were covered in sweat. Even if there was a magic fan in every corner of the workshop that kept blowing, it still couldn't cool people down. Sir Vice President, can you apply to Sir President to set up a large-scale frost array here? Auron wiped the dense beads of sweat on his forehead and couldn't help but complain to Hines, who was beside him. He came from a noble family and had a good family background since he was young, so he had never suffered this kind of hardship before. Auron, you really are a child of a noble family. Do you know how much it costs to arrange more than one large-scale frost array? Without waiting for Hines to reply, a student on the side retorted with a cold snort. We only get a few gold coins a month, and even if all 30 of us work together, we can only barely cover the monthly consumption of a large-scale frost array. Do you think Sir Chairman will arrange one for us? I also know this, but we have to work hard to obtain it. Auron didn't mind the taunting tone of this student. Since he received a special reward from Sui for improving the magic array last time, Auron had been in a very good mood, and his mind had become much wider. Cool. Everyone, don't worry. I will report this matter to the chairman later and try my best to convince him to arrange a large-scale frost array. I believe that when the chairman sees how hard everyone is working, he will definitely think of a way to solve this. Seeing everyone covered in sweat, Hines quickly comforted them. Because of the hot sales of the magic fans, the Magic Fan Factory earned over 100 gold coins a day. Calculating it like this, it wasn't impossible to arrange a large-scale frost array in the workshop. After all, these students were the core of the magic fan production, and now that the weather was too hot, it had already seriously affected their work efficiency. As the manager of the factory, Heinz had to consider this problem. Faced with Heinz's reply, the students didn't reveal any excited expressions. Even Oren just laughed and shook his head, looking like he didn't believe this at all. That student was right. The cost of arranging a large-scale frost array was too high. From the perspective of a merchant, they definitely wouldn't easily arrange something like this for their workers. At the very least, they had never heard of any chamber of commerce decorating their workshop with such extravagant decorations. Of course, that was just what they thought. However, when they saw Sue-Yi appear in the factory, a glimmer of hope was ignited in the students' hearts. However, Sue-Yi's answer immediately dashed their hope. Setting up a large-scale frost array? That won't do. It's too wasteful. There's no need for that. Sue-Yi shook his head and answered with certainty. The students looked at each other, sighed in unison, and continued with their work. Sir Chairman, I had always thought that you were different from the other merchants. But now, it seems that there isn't much difference. Aaron was greatly disappointed and couldn't help but complain. Sue-Yi laughed and waved his hand, saying, "Don't be so anxious and disappointed. Although I said that it would be a waste to set up a large-scale frost array, I didn't say that I wouldn't help you solve this problem." The students curiously looked at Sue-Yi again. They thought that the weather was this hot, and if he didn't set up a large-scale frost array, how could he solve this problem? Sue-Yi pointed at the rectangular iron box that he had just brought and signaled to Heinz to work with him. They set up this iron box on the wall of the workshop and then took out a magic crystal to put into the groove under the iron box. Seeing Sue-Yi's actions, the eyes of the students all lit up. Could it be that this was a new magic machine that Sue-Yi had developed? Sir Chairman, what is this thing? Aaron couldn't help asking. Don't be anxious, you'll know in a bit. After Sue-Yi finished his preparations, he pressed the switch at the bottom of the strange iron box. Ding! After a soft sound, a faint milky white light lit up in the iron box, followed by a faint cyan light. Then, a faint humming sound could be heard from the iron box. There were several strange openings under the iron box, and there was a piece of cloth hanging from the openings. At first, everyone didn't understand what use this thing had, but after a while, everyone found that the cloth began to move. It was clear that there was wind blowing from the openings. Seeing this scene, the students were disappointed again. Sir Chairman, isn't this just changing the appearance of the magic fan? What use is there? That's right, we have several magic fans around us, but just the magic fans can't cool us down that much. That's right, you should set up a large-scale frost array for us. Otherwise, we'll die from the heat sooner or later. Sue-Yi revealed a smile and didn't explain anything. After a while, Heinz and the students suddenly felt something strange. That's not right. Why is the wind so cool? That's right, so strange. It's clearly this hot. So why is the wind blowing from this thing cold? Really, it's so cool. This is great. It's much more comfortable this time. Haha, so comfortable. This thing is almost comparable to a large-scale frost array. After the students enjoyed the cool wind blowing from the strange iron box, they couldn't help asking Sue-Yi about it out of curiosity. Sir Chairman, just what is this thing? That's right. Why is the wind blowing from it so cool? If the magic fans were like this, that would be great. Everyone wouldn't need to set up a large-scale frost array at all. This thing. Sue-Yi stretched out his voice. After he whetted the students' appetites, he kept them in suspense. I won't tell you for now. It can't be, right? Sir Chairman, are you playing with us? That's right. Why are you deliberately whetting our appetites? At least tell us what this thing is called, right? Hey, it isn't that I'm not willing to tell you, but this thing isn't finished yet. This is just the first prototype I've developed, so I'm giving it to you to use first. 1, it's to help you improve your working environment, and 2, it's to give you a task, which is to observe the operation of this magic machine at all times. If there are any problems or changes with it, you have to record it. I need to collect the actual operating data and then make some targeted improvements. Do you understand? It's like this, we promise to complete this task, right? Relax, Sir Chairman. Based on how much cooler it has made me, I will definitely treat it like a treasure. No. I'm not letting you treat it like a treasure. Rather, I'm letting you play with it as much as possible. This is because I need to see how it reacts to various special situations, so I can test its various functions. As for the time, I'll set it at 3 days for now. After 3 days, I'll collect all your data. If everything goes smoothly, this thing will enter mass production. When the time comes, I'll be able to install a few more for you and guarantee that you won't feel hot. That's great. Sir Chairman, you really are a good person. No, it's a good boss. Seeing the students jump up and down in joy, Sue-Yi revealed a smile. He turned to Heinz and said in a low voice, Heinz, I'll be going on a long trip in the next few days, so I'll have to trouble you with the matters here. Going on a long trip? Where are you going? Heinz asked in a surprised voice. Sue-Yi's eyes drifted to the west. I'm going to the dwarf tribe where Master Lanus came from. Master Lanus said that if I go quickly, I'll be there in a day, so I'll be there in 3 days. But if I'm delayed by anything, you'll have to take care of the matters here. Other than that, you'll have to take a trip to Carmilla Magic Tower for me and tell Great Magician Camilla to help me take 2 more days off. Heinz asked in a doubtful voice, Why are you suddenly going to the dwarf tribe? Do you still remember what I said to you last time? I've never been satisfied with the craftsmanship of the blacksmiths in Bana City, and the only one qualified was Master Lanus. But there was only one Master Lanus, and he couldn't satisfy my needs at all. I seriously thought about it, and discussed it with Master Lanus, deciding to take a trip to the dwarf tribe he came from. If I can recruit some dwarven blacksmith from the dwarf tribe, it would be a great help to my future plans. Although the dwarven blacksmiths are a bit stronger than human blacksmiths, you don't need to be this strict, right? Look at the outer shells of these magic fans. They were all made by the human blacksmiths in the city. I don't see any problems with them at all. Heinz, this isn't me being strict. It's just that your standards are too low. Could it be that you haven't noticed that although the outer shells of these magic fans look good, there are actually some small differences? This causes the appearance of each magic fan that we produce to be different, both big and small. Don't look down on these differences. You can't see it now, but when I want to make this factory into an assembly line in the future, these small differences will be fatal. Assembly line? Even if Heinz wasn't surprised by the new words that came out of Sue-Yi's mouth, he was still stunned. What is this? I'll explain it to you when the conditions are right. You just need to be a bit more anxious, which is that all the production must be strictly regulated and standardized. There can't be any ambiguity at all. Seeing how serious Sue-Yi was, Heinz could only nod in agreement. All right, I'll set off now. I hope that when I come back, I can bring back a group of dwarven blacksmiths. Chapter 26. If it was calculated in a straight line, the dwarven tribe that Master Lanus came from was less than 200 kilometers away from Bana City. But if the entire journey was included, it was close to 300 kilometers. It was a good thing that the first 200 kilometers could be quickly covered by horse carriages. But when they reached the mountain where the dwarven tribe was, there was a distance of over 20 kilometers that they had to walk. It was like Master Lanus said, this trip took an entire day. Sue-Yi set off from Banta City in the morning, and only when the sky was completely dark did he see the sparks in front of him under the guidance of Master Lanus. Do you see it? Those sparks are furnace fires. The furnace fires in our dwarven tribe will never be extinguished. After saying this, Master Lanus stuck out his stomach that wasn't small and had a proud look on his face. It was a pity that Sue-Yi didn't have the strength to speak at all from the day's journey, so he didn't tactfully agree with him. Towards Sue-Yi's sudden visit, the dwarves in the tribe were a bit surprised. But because Sue-Yi came with Master Lanus, they were warmly welcomed in by the dwarves and immediately held a large welcoming banquet. The dwarves loved wine, so naturally they mainly entertained guests with wine. Sue-Yi didn't remember how many bowls of wine he had been forced to drink, and he didn't remember how he had fallen asleep. But when he woke up and opened his eyes, he found that the sky was already bright, and it was already the morning of the next day. Sue-Yi shook his head and found that strangely it didn't hurt, but he did feel a bit dizzy. It seemed like not only did the dwarves love wine, they were also very skilled at making wine. After drinking that much last night, he actually didn't get drunk the next day. Of course, this was also because Sue-Yi's alcohol tolerance wasn't bad. On Earth, as one of the top mechanical engineers in the country's largest mechanical engineering company, Even if Su-yi strictly controlled himself, he couldn't avoid all kinds of dinners. His alcohol tolerance was trained like this. This world's alcohol distilling technology couldn't compare to Earth's technology, so naturally the alcohol content couldn't compare. This indirectly increased Su-yi's alcohol tolerance by a large amount. "Hey, Su-yi, right? You're awake?" A rough voice sounded from his side. Su-yi turned his head and saw a male dwarf with a large nose. "You are." Su-yi scratched his head. He had an impression of this male dwarf, but he couldn't remember his name. "Haha, just call me Kanbai." The dwarf vigorously slapped Su-yi on the shoulder, laughing loudly. "I thought that humans couldn't hold their liquor well. I didn't expect you to be so good at drinking. Yesterday, you actually knocked out 2 people before collapsing. Not bad, not bad." Su-yi chuckled, thinking that the dwarves loved wine, so they regarded those who could drink as heroes. His alcohol tolerance last night had become a good stepping stone. "Where's Master Lanus? Why don't I see him?" Su-yi asked. "That kid Lanus went to see the patriarch, saying that he had something to discuss." "All right, I almost forgot. He said that you can go and see the patriarch after you wake up. What do you think? Do you want to go now? But you've just woken up. You should eat something to fill your stomach before going." Su-yi rubbed his stomach. Indeed, it felt empty, and he nodded. Kanbai quickly brought over 2 pancakes made of unknown ingredients. Su-yi hurriedly finished them and asked Kanbai to lead the way to see the patriarch. The dwarven tribe that Lanus came from wasn't particularly large. According to Kanbai, the entire tribe's dwarves added up to only 500 people. Su-yi made an estimation based on the situation he saw. The adult male dwarves in this dwarven tribe added up to only 100 people. This made him somewhat disappointed. He had intended to recruit as many dwarven craftsmen as possible this time, but the adult male dwarves in this tribe added up to only 100 people. Even if every one of them had the same standard as Master Lanus, it still wasn't enough. "Who told you that only adult male dwarves among us dwarves can forge?" The dwarven patriarch Saluka snorted disdainfully at Su-yi's question. "Let me tell you, ever since we dwarves were born, we have been accompanied by fine wine and furnaces. Even the children of our tribe are much more skillful than your human craftsmen." Looking at Saluka's complacent expression, as well as Master Lanus and Kanbai's incomparably approving gazes, Su-yi tactfully didn't refute. After pondering for a moment, he asked, "Then, revered patriarch, may I ask if you could allow me to hire some skillful craftsmen to assist Master Lanus in completing the task I entrusted to him? With regard to your request, Lanus has already informed me." Saluka nodded. "Logically speaking, I have no reason to stop you. However, human, have you ever considered a problem? If you take away a large number of our tribesmen from here, then the lives of our remaining tribesmen will inevitably be greatly affected. Moreover, how can you guarantee that our tribesmen who work in your human cities will have a good enough life and smoothly obtain the remuneration they deserve?" Su-yi looked at Master Lanus, and Lanus gave a slight nod. Master Lanus had already told Su-yi this problem on the way here, and this was a problem that many dwarven tribes faced. Although the various races of the signs were considered peaceful, they were still different races, so there would be various problems if they lived together. For example, even if Master Lanus was a recognized blacksmith master in Banda City, because of his identity as a dwarf, there were many inconveniences to his life in Banda City. Although these doubts were raised by Saluka, they were the doubts in the hearts of most dwarves. It was because of these doubts that the dwarves gathered into their own small tribes and didn't choose to live together with the humans. Su-yi already had a plan for this, so he calmly said, "I ask the patriarch to be assured. Since I want to invite my dwarven friends to work, naturally I will solve these problems for them. As for living conditions, I have already discussed this with Master Lanus, and I believe that Master Lanus has already passed it on to you. You said that you want to set aside an area near the factory for the clansmen to live in, as well as building houses for them and solving their living conditions. This is very good. But what about the other aspects? Are you certain that my clansmen won't be pushed aside and bullied by you humans?" Su-yi revealed a faint smile. "Lord Patriarch, let's talk about a fact that I'm not willing to admit. It is that we humans are a very practical race. As long as the other side can bring us benefits, we'll be friendly with them and won't care what race they are. I think that you should agree to this, right? Saluka gave a cold snort. Of course I know. Since it's like this, what do you have to worry about? Look, Master Lanus is a very good example. Although he is a dwarf, because of his outstanding forging skills, he can bring convenience and benefits to many people in Bana City. So he has received the respect of many people in Bana City. Perhaps there are some inconveniences in his life, but these inconveniences don't really affect his life, right? Master Lanus gave a laugh and said with a nod, "It is indeed like this. Those fellows in Bana City don't dare offend me. There are many things that the human craftsmen in Bana City can't do, so they can only find me to do it. How do they find trouble with me?" Saluka was silent for a bit before continuing. "All right, let's not talk about this problem for now. You've taken away a large group of strong clansmen. What about the remaining clansmen? You have to know, even if we dwarves love wine and forging, we also need to live. Whether it is hunting or harvesting, we need these clansmen to work hard. If you take them away, it will greatly affect our tribe. Lord Patriarch, I have a suggestion. Why don't you listen to it? Speak. I'm planning to build a research lab here. I hope that the dwarven friends of your tribe can help me research some things. Of course, I will provide a fixed amount of research funds each month. As for the amount, let's set it at 500 gold coins for now. If the lab has concrete results, I will give corresponding rewards based on the results. Lord Patriarch, what do you think of this suggestion?" As soon as his voice fell, the three dwarves present were stunned. 500 gold coins? Master Lanus' eyes open wide. "Suit, why didn't you tell me before that you wanted to build a research lab here?" "Research lab? Human, we dwarves are best at forging. What do you want us to help you research?" As the chief, Saluka cared about something else. "Please be assured, the research I need is related to forging. It's mainly related to forging materials. I brought a research plan today. How about Lord Patriarch take a look?" He took out a document from his chest and handed it over. Saluka looked over the document and was a bit surprised. "Alloy steel? What is this?" "The specific information is written on it. Lord Patriarch can slowly study it in the future." He replied with a smile. "Now, may I ask Lord Patriarch, do you have any other questions? If there's anything you're not satisfied with, please speak. As long as I can do it, I will definitely satisfy your requests." Saluka, Master Lanus, and Kanbai exchanged glances and lightly sighed. "All right, human, I admit that I've been moved by your words. I basically agree to your conditions and agree to your recruitment of manpower in the tribe. However, we still need to discuss the specific details." He revealed a happy smile. "Of course." Chapter 27. In fact, even if you didn't compensate us with 500 gold coins, the chief would still have to agree to your conditions. On the carriage back, Master Lanus suddenly sighed and said to "Oh, what do you mean?" Sui asked. "Don't you see? The living conditions in the tribe are already quite difficult." Master Lanus smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Actually, I've already suggested to the chief a long time ago that we should let the tribe go to the human world to explore. With the forging skills of us dwarves, it is very likely that we would be able to greatly improve the lives of our tribe." "This suggestion is very good. Why didn't Chief Saluka agree?" He asked curiously. Master Lanus glanced at and hesitated for a moment before replying. "Because we dwarves have been deceived by you humans too many times in the past. The chief simply doesn't trust you humans." This time, it was Yi's turn to smile bitterly. "Then why did the chief agree this time? Isn't he afraid that I am also deceiving him?" "Because there is no other way," Master Lanus said helplessly. "Now the signs are completely ruled by you humans. Almost all the resource-rich places have been occupied by you humans. No matter if it is us dwarves, elves, or even those sturdy beastmen, we can only stay far away from you humans and find a place that has not been occupied by you humans. However, these places are not rich in resources, and we are not as creative as you humans. As a result, the living conditions of our tribe are getting worse and worse, and our numbers are getting fewer and fewer. So, do you know? When I was young, our tribe could have more than 1,000 dwarves, but now there are only 500 people left. When you were young, Sui looked at Lanus and thought that dwarves have a much longer lifespan than humans. The young that Master Lanus spoke of was probably a few hundred years ago. Master Lanus didn't care what Sui was thinking and continued. Just last year, 3 elders passed away in the tribe, but they didn't even give birth to a baby. Because of this, the entire tribe has lost another 3 people. The chief knows that if this continues, perhaps our tribe will gradually disappear. But there's no other way. We dwarves can't fight the humans on the signs at all. We can't fight the humans for the resources of the continent like we did thousands of years ago. But it is easier said than done to integrate into the human race. Perhaps you don't know how much suffering I suffered in order to survive in Bana City, even almost losing my life. Sui silently looked at Master Lanus before he gave a slight nod. Although he didn't know what happened, he didn't know what kind of hard work it took for a race like Master Lanus to integrate into the human city. This time, Lord Patriarch actually wasn't prepared to agree to you directly taking away so many able-bodied laborers from the clan, but there was no other way. The conditions you proposed were simply too generous. Disregarding everything else, just taking out 500 gold coins at once can help solve many of the clan's problems that need to be solved. Not to mention that you've agreed to pay 8 gold coins a month to the clansmen. With this salary, the clansmen's families won't need to worry about their future. Tell me, with this kind of condition, how could the chief reject it? Sui was silent for a bit before he couldn't help asking, has the lives of the dwarves really reached such a difficult stage? Why does the chief believe me? Could it be that he isn't afraid that I'm lying to him? You still don't understand? Even if you're deceiving him, the 500 gold coins you took out are genuine. Master Lon knew rolled his eyes. Master Lanus rolled his eyes as he said, then again, you are someone I brought here. Although I haven't been in contact with you for a long time, I've lived among humans for a long time. I can see that you're not a fake liar. At the very least, you're serious about carrying out your words. Just based on this, I feel that you're worth trusting this time. Sui embarrassedly scratched his head and chuckled. So I'm such a trustworthy person. Master Lanus glanced at Sui unhappily. Don't be happy too early, kid. As for the specifics, it'll depend on how you treat my clansmen when the time comes. Let me tell you, if you lie to them when the time comes, I'll give you a good lesson, even if I have to risk my life. Sui repeatedly waved his hand. How could that be? Master Lanus, you and your clansmen are all my treasures. I can't wait to take care of you. So why would I lie to you? Let me tell you the truth, Master Lanus. The work that you and your clansmen are about to do will become the most important work that will change the entire signs. In the future, you dwarves will very likely write a thick stroke in the entire history of the signs. When the time comes, you'll be experts that the entire continent needs to look up to. Do you still need to worry about the most basic of living problems? Master Lanus glared. Kid, don't say such nice things. What changing the continent and writing it into history, I don't care about that. What I care about the most right now is, where are the houses you promised to build for my clansmen? Sui laughed, thinking that it really wasn't realistic for Master Lanus to believe this right now. But he was certain that as long as everything went smoothly, Master Lanus and his clansmen would become the most important driving force in changing the history of the signs. When they returned to Bana City after 3 days, it was already nighttime. After entering the city, Master Lanus said a few things to Sui before jumping out of the horse carriage. Sui ordered the horse carriage driver to bring him back to the house he was renting. When he jumped out of the horse carriage, he found that there was a person sitting in front of his door. Based on that figure, it seemed a bit familiar. Coming closer to take a look, Sui couldn't help being stunned. Steel, it's this late. What are you sitting in front of my house for? Steel had been hugging her legs with her head between them, but when she heard Sui's voice, she slowly looked up. After seeing her face, Sui was shocked. Under the light, Steel's face was very pale and her face was much thinner. Her face had lost its youthful beauty from before, and her large eyes didn't have any figure at all. It was like she had collapsed. "Hey, Steele, what happened?" Sue-E squatted down in worry and looked into Steele's eyes as he asked this in a deep voice. Steele opened her mouth, but not a single word came out. After a while, she slowly shook her head. Sue-E knit his brows and didn't care about anything else. He helped Steele up and opened the door, entering the house. When they came in, Vivian's bedroom lit up and Vivian's timid voice sounded. "Who is it?" "It's me. Go back to sleep. There's no need to get up." Sue-E replied and helped Steele sit down on the stool. He turned around and poured her a cup of water before sitting down across from her. He paused and asked gently, "Steele, tell me, what happened? Were you bullied?" Steele suddenly revealed a bitter smile and looked at Sue-E. She picked up the teacup on the table and took a big gulp. Because she drank too quickly, she choked and coughed violently. Sue-E frowned deeply. Although he didn't know much about girls, from Steele's current behavior, she must have suffered a heavy blow. Otherwise, a lively and playful young girl like her wouldn't have become like this so easily. "Steele, could it be that the gift wasn't given?" Sue-E guessed. The last time he saw Steele was when Steele came to him at night and said that she wanted to thank him. But she was later angered by Sue-E's "you're still a child," and ran away. But in their previous conversation, Steele had said that the piano model she asked Sue-E to help her make was already done, and the birthday of the person she liked was coming soon. She would go to the capital of the Lampari Kingdom, Anvilmar City, and personally give the gift to that person. Now that a few days had passed, and Steele came back looking like she had lost her soul, it was very likely that the problem was this. Hearing Sue-E's question, Steele put down the teacup and looked at Sue-E in a daze for a while. Then she suddenly asked, "Sue-E, tell me, am I a child?" Sue-E was surprised. Could it be that Steele still cared about what he said last time? But it didn't seem like it. Sue-E seriously thought about it, but he didn't know how to answer. Now that Steele's mental state was clearly unstable, if he answered wrong, it was very likely that it would cause unpredictable consequences. This depends on how you look at it. From my point of view, okay, no need to say any more. You're right, I'm a child. You're a surprisingly stupid little child. Still suddenly raised her voice as she spoke. Why do you say that? Sue-E frowned and asked, "If I'm not a naive child who doesn't know anything, how could I like that scum?" Steele suddenly cursed fiercely. Chapter 28. Scum. Sue-E paused, and his face quickly darkened. "Steele, tell me what happened. If someone bullied you, just tell me. I'll find a way to avenge you." "You?" Steele smiled and shook her head. "You can't. His family is very powerful. You can't do anything to him." "Is it very powerful?" Sue-E raised his eyebrows and smiled. "If that's the case, then I'll have to do some research. Come, tell me, who is the guy who bullied you? Most importantly, did you suffer any harm?" Seeing Sue-E's gaze on her, Steele's pale face blushed. She rolled her eyes at Sue-E and said, "What are you thinking? I'm fine. Don't forget, my grandfather is a great magician. He doesn't have the guts to do anything to me." "That's true." Sue-E nodded. "According to what you're saying, it's because you realize that he's a scum. So, you fell out of love?" "Bah, I've never been in love with him. Okay? How can I fall out of love?" Steele rebuked. Sue-E laughed. Failing in one-sided love can also be considered as falling out of love. Seeing that Steele's expression had regained some vitality, Sue-E was relieved. It seemed that Steele had simply found out that the person she liked was a scum. So the beautiful image in her heart was destroyed and her spirit was damaged. This was a very common thing. It was not rare for young girls to encounter this kind of thing. As long as she was not hurt, it was fine. After a while, she would naturally return to normal. "Oomph, you can still laugh." Steele snorted and glared at Sue-E. Although she was a little angry, Steele found that after chatting with Sue-E for a while, she did not feel as empty as before. It was as if the whole world had collapsed. She seemed to have come back to life. After a pause, Steele said to Sue-E seriously, "Sue-E, what am I to say next? You can't tell my grandfather, understand?" Sue-E knew that Steele needed someone to listen to her talk and relieve her depression. He nodded seriously and stared at Steele, waiting for her to speak. That gift. I didn't give it away. Under the cover of the night, there was only a candle in Su Yi's room. With this light, Steele slowly told Su Yi about her experiences during this time. This was actually a story that Su Yi didn't think was too strange. Steele's secret crush was a male classmate of hers from the Lampuri Royal Academy. This male classmate came from a large noble family in Anvilmar City, so naturally he had a deep background. Adding in his handsome appearance, elegant demeanor, and outstanding talent for magic, he was recognized as the male god of the Lampuri Royal Academy, so there were many female students who secretly admired him. Steele was one of them. Properly speaking, this was a normal story of unrequited love, but Steele was a very stubborn girl. Even after graduating from the Lampuri Royal Academy and returning to Bana City, she had been separated from this male classmate, but she still missed him. This time, taking advantage of this male classmate's birthday banquet, Steele asked Su Yi to help her make a fine model piano. Then she brought this gift filled with her heart to Anvilmar City, preparing to personally give it to this male classmate at the banquet and confess to him. Who would have thought that after Steele went to Anvilmar City, she would immediately hear a piece of bad news? This male god in her heart was actually engaged. Steele was naturally sad, but she still planned to give the gift. She was prepared to hide her feelings and sincerely wish this male god in her heart a happy life. If this matter ended here, it would be a sad story with a good ending. But what happened next was a bit unexpected. Steele found this male god at the banquet and was prepared to give him the gift, say a few words of blessings before leaving. Who would have thought that after seeing Steele, this male god would secretly tell Steele that he had always liked Steele? Steele was pleasantly surprised, but she remembered that this male god was already engaged, so she tactfully reminded him. However, after this male god's flowery words, Steele strangely believed him and even secretly went on 2 dates with him in the next 2 days. Then how did that fellow become scum? Hearing this, Su Yi looked at Steele with a strange look. Could it be that he used force on you? Steele's face turned red. He didn't dare use force. But in short, he is scum. He was clearly engaged and had a fiancée, but he kept making that kind of request to me. I rejected him, and he actually said that I didn't like him at all. Humph. Who said that if you like someone, you have to give your body to them? This scum. Later, I accidentally overheard a conversation between a few classmates. It turned out that this fellow had already played with many female classmates when he was at school, but afterwards he didn't admit it to anyone. He was already a complete scum. Clap, clap, clap. He suddenly clapped his hands. Steele, congratulations. Steele stared at Su Yi with her eyes wide open. I'm already so miserable, and you still want to congratulate me? Are you here to comfort me or to mock me? No. I'm sincerely congratulating you. Su Yi smiled. Steele, you were able to recognize this scum's true colors before causing more damage. Is this still worth congratulating? Also, I admire your persistence and clear-headedness. Since that guy was able to deceive so many female students, he must be very good at dealing with girls. It's really rare for you to be able to maintain your chastity in front of him. Steele's face turned slightly red, and she snorted softly. I wouldn't degrade myself that much. Su Yi chuckled. Well said. But still, since you already know that he is scum, why are you torturing yourself like this and putting yourself in such a pitiful state? It's not worth it. I just couldn't get over it. Steele mumbled. What about now? Have you gotten over it? Steele looked at Su Yi and then looked at the night sky outside the window. After thinking for a while, she took out an exquisite box from her backpack. She opened the box, and inside was naturally the piano model she had made herself. Steele stared at the piano model in a daze for a while, then suddenly took a deep breath and punched it. Boom! This piano model was incomparably delicate, so naturally it was incomparably weak. Adding in the fact that Steele's fist had a low-level fire magic attached to it, the piano model was instantly shattered to pieces. Even the remains were completely burned away, turning into ashes in an instant. Okay, now I have nothing to do with this guy. Steele raised her head, and her beautiful shoulder-length blonde hair fluttered in the wind. In just a moment, she seemed to have returned to the youthful and beautiful girl from before. Sui couldn't help but smile in relief. This Steele was indeed a strong girl. She recovered so easily. But this also meant that she didn't really have any feelings for the so-called Prince Charming. At best, it was just an adolescent girl's natural admiration for beautiful things. This was also good. Most girls would go through this. Steele being able to go through this kind of experience had enriched her life and made her more mature. Sui, I won't be going back tonight. While Sui was praising in his heart, Steele's sudden words almost made him spit out his drink. Huh? You're not going back? You wouldn't be thinking of spending the night at my place, right? Sui's eyes opened wide as he looked at Steele in disbelief. Are you kidding me? I am a single man and a little girl like you spending the night at my place. Aren't you afraid of rumors spreading? If great magician Camilla knew about this, it would be strange if he didn't use magic to send me flying. Che, I'm not worried. So what are you worried about? Steele looked at Sui in disdain. Didn't you always say that I was a child? Then what's wrong with a child like me spending the night at an uncle's house? Then again, you have a little girl like Vivian at home. What kind of single man are you? Relax. I'll go sleep with Vivian in a bit. I won't disturb you, uncle. After saying this, Steele stretched and walked into the bathroom. I haven't bathed in several days. I'm so dirty. Hey, uncle, can you lend me a set of clothes first? I haven't even had time to wash my clothes in the past few days. I don't have anything to change into. Seeing Steele walk into the bathroom without any courtesy, Sui could only helplessly blink. He turned his head and found that Vivian had opened the bedroom door a crack and was peeking in, so he waved his hand at her. Come, Vivian, go greet Steele and tell her how to use our bathroom. That's right. Do you have any of the clothes I bought for you last time that you haven't worn yet? Take one out for her to change into, and I'll buy a few more for you in a few days. Vivian obediently nodded and went back into the room to find a set of clothes to bring into the bathroom. After a while, there was the sound of running water and Steele's light singing in the bathroom. Sui couldn't help shaking his head. This fellow, how does she look like someone who just fell out of love? Humph, calling me an uncle? I'm only 27 this year. All right, how do I look like an uncle? Hey, Vivian, do you think I look like an uncle? The pitiful Vivian looked at Sui in a daze, not knowing whether to nod or shake her head. Chapter 29. After a long journey yesterday and being tossed around late into the night because of Steele's matter, Sui woke up very late the next day. When he opened his eyes, the sunlight filled the room and it seemed like it was close to noon. Master, you're awake? Vivian's timid voice sounded in his ears. It's almost noon. What do you want to eat for lunch? Sui jumped up and looked around, but he didn't see Steele. Big sister Steele has already gone back. She said that if Master wants to go to the magic tower today, you should look for her. She has something to discuss with you. Oh, something to discuss with me? Why didn't that fellow say anything last night? Sui looked out the window and said to Vivian, Don't cook today. Let's go out and eat. We'll save some time. Master, I don't need to. Vivian said in a surprised voice. You can go out and eat. I just need to eat something at home. Stop wasting words. This is an order. Sui said without any politeness. After being with Vivian for a while, Sui knew that perhaps because this little girl had been a slave for too long, she was used to putting herself in a very low position. If he wanted to change her mind, it would take a long time. Oh, as expected, hearing Sui's strong tone, Vivian obediently agreed. After leaving home with Vivian, Sui first brought her to a clothing store in Bandit City to buy 2 sets of clothes for Vivian before finding a restaurant to have lunch. While eating, Sui organized his thoughts in his mind. There were many things in front of him right now, so he had to prioritize these things. The most important thing was, of course, to guarantee the sales of the magic fan. Otherwise, if he lacked funds, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Although the magic fan sales were hot, Sui was very clear that the market in Bandit City and the surrounding areas would be saturated soon. The sales volume would quickly decrease and become flat, so it wouldn't be able to bring in as much profit as it did now. Sui had 2 plans for this. One was to upgrade the magic fan and keep releasing new products. He believed that when a second version of the variable speed magic fan was put into production, it would bring another wave of popularity because people would always chase after new things. The second was to continuously expand the market. Other than Karma City, there were merchants from the other cities near Banta City that made large amounts of orders. According to the information they brought, when the magic fans entered those cities, it immediately created a wild wave. The first batch of magic fans that these merchants brought back to test the waters were all sold out in a short period of time. So when these merchants came the second time, they directly placed orders that were several times larger than the first time. But because the magic fan factory's output couldn't be increased for now, Heinz only accepted 5,000 orders. Heinz was very annoyed because of this. If he knew earlier, he would have been a bit more bold from the beginning. He would have expanded the factory by several times and increased the output by several times, which would have allowed him to take in all the orders. He wasn't in a rush. The second version of the variable speed magic fan had already been decided in his mind. As long as everything went smoothly, the second version of the variable speed magic fan would enter the assembly line and the factory's output would increase by several times. At that time, not to mention a trivial 10,000 orders, even if it was 20,000, 30,000, or even more, it would still be easily taken. Of course, to realize the assembly line, there were still many things that needed to be prepared. This was what Sui cared about the most right now. Although Master Lanus had already made the magic capping machine and the magic thread rolling machine, allowing the screw bolts to be mass-produced, it also meant that it was possible to realize the assembly line of the variable speed magic fan. But this was far from enough. If he wanted to take the backward casting process of the first version of the magic fan to the assembly line of the current assembly line, he had to standardize every part of the magic fan. As for the standardized processing, it was very hard to accomplish with just manpower. Even if Master Lanus' clansmen all had the same forging skills as Lanus, they still couldn't satisfy this requirement. To achieve this, the most important thing was the forging machines. For example, the outer shell of the magic fan. If they relied on manpower to forge it, a blacksmith shop in Banta City could only make no more than 30 pieces a day. Now, in order to guarantee the production of the magic fan, he had taken out all the blacksmiths in Banta City. Although there was always work to do, and the people in the blacksmiths were very happy, this had already affected the order of Banta City, so it definitely wasn't a long-term plan. Even like this, the output of the outer shell of the magic fan was barely enough to support the production of the factory. It was impossible to increase it any further. Not to mention that he wasn't satisfied with the craftsmanship of these blacksmiths. The standards of the outer shell of the magic fan that they forged were too different. If they were placed in a factory on Earth that had strict standards, most of them would be considered defective products. If you wanted to mass-produce the variable speed magic fan, these outer shells wouldn't be suitable at all. In the end, it's still a serious lack of a heavy industrial foundation. Thinking of this, he couldn't help giving a sigh. The establishment of an industrial system naturally couldn't be separated from the development of a heavy industrial system. But for the signs, not to mention a heavy industrial system, even a light industrial system was rare. Their foundation was just too lacking. I hope that those dwarves can change this situation after they come. He took out a small book and began to make preliminary plans for this matter. According to his agreement with Chief Saluka, in 3 days, there would be 100 dwarves with exquisite craftsmanship that would come to Banta City and become Suyi's subordinates. In order to protect the lives of these dwarves, he had to build a living area near the factory. Then he had to build 2 other workshops. One of them would be the main workshop for the dwarves, and the other would be the assembly workshop for the variable speed magic fan. Because there was only a month left until the end of summer, time was tight. The 2 workshops would be crude for now, and they would be built according to the standards of the magic fan workshop from before. But the living area of the dwarves couldn't be casually built. He had already made an agreement with Chief Saluka and had patted his chest in front of Master Lanus to guarantee this. Not to mention that these dwarves are the most important craftsmen in Suyi's mind. It wasn't exaggerated to say that the foundation of the sign's industrial system was in the hands of these dwarves. If he didn't treat them a bit better, it wouldn't be right. There are too many things to do. There's far from enough people. Sui knit his brows as he looked at the dense list of things in his little book. Not mentioning anything else, just the workshop and the workers' dormitories need a large amount of people. I wonder if Heinz can solve this matter? While he was thinking about this, he suddenly saw Vivian burying her head in her food, and his eyes instantly lit up. Got it. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. You want to buy a few more slaves for me? Viscount Leslie looked at Sui in a daze. He never thought that this fellow would come in the middle of the day and make this kind of request upon meeting. What do you want to buy them for? Because I need a large amount of people right now. Sui said, since I need a large amount of people right now. I don't have a way to hire that many people right now. So I can't hire that many people right now. So I can only find you to think of a way. Viscount Leslie's face was a bit ugly. Based on your tone, you need quite a few people. Tell me, how many people do you want? Sui stretched out a finger and said with a faint smile, let's start with 100 people. 100? Viscount Leslie slightly narrowed his eyes and reprimanded without any politeness. Do you think this is a pig? You think you can get 100 just because you say you want 100? Let me tell you, there are only 300 slaves under my name. If I give you 100, what would I do? To be honest with you, I still want to buy a few more slaves. Can't you see that there is still a lot of empty land under my name that hasn't been cultivated? If I had enough people, there wouldn't be this much empty land, and I wouldn't be able to rent it to you. Sui was not moved at all as he asked with a smile. That means that Sir Viscount needs those slaves just to have them cultivate. Nonsense. Otherwise, what would those fellows be used for? They're just some slaves. Viscount Leslie reprimanded before suddenly looking at Vivian, who had been standing behind Sui the entire time. That's right, this little girl seems to be the slave you stole from Brunei without my permission last time, right? What? You've tasted the sweetness from her, and now you want to buy some more slaves to use? Viscount Leslie's eyes swept over her, and Vivian immediately lowered her head in fear. In her eyes, Viscount Leslie's previous master was high up. He was not someone a small slave like her could look at. Sui knit his brows and said with a serious look, Sir Viscount, first, I didn't steal her by force. I discussed the conditions with Butler Brunei and bought Vivian after both sides reached an agreement. You also signed the document to agree to this. Second, Vivian is now one of my people, so I ask you to pay attention to your words and not use this kind of insulting words. Hearing that Sui was actually going against Viscount Leslie for her, Vivian was shocked. She couldn't help reaching out her little hand to pull on Sui's clothes as her face filled with fear. Viscount Leslie was a bit surprised, but he didn't look angry because he was being contradicted. Rather, he looked over Sui and Vivian before revealing a smile. Sui, you really are a strange fellow. For a slave, you actually dare to contradict me. You say that this little girl is one of your people, but I think she's still a virgin, right? She's still a virgin after following you for this long. Could it be that Sui is a good person that I didn't expect? He never thought that Viscount Leslie would say such a thing. Sui and Vivian's faces couldn't help turning red. Coo, Sir Viscount, I didn't mean that. Only, forget it. There's no meaning in talking about this. I just want to remind Sir Viscount that you're looking down on the value of slaves too much. Even if they're slaves, as long as their hands and feet are normal and their minds are normal, they have complete value as human resources. Only you haven't developed them yet. I'll say something you won't like to hear, but those 300 slaves in your hands are far less valuable than giving them to me. Viscount Leslie was instantly filled with anger. All right, then I want to hear. If I give them to you, how will you display their value? Chapter 30. Heinz saw the large group of men and women in ragged clothes behind Sui, walking over to the factory, and was shocked. Could it be that this fellow had been targeted by the beggar sect of Banda City? When the crowd came closer, Heinz found that something was wrong. This was because in front of the ragged men and women, other than Sui, there was an old man with bright clothes who had a noble aura around him. Butler Brunei, why are you here? Heinz asked in a surprised voice. Butler Brunei nodded to Hines and didn't reply to his question. He turned to Sue E. and said, Chairman Sue, I've already brought them here. From now on, these 100 slaves will be yours to use, and you can order them to do anything. But the Lord Viscount has said that these 100 slaves are only lent to you and not given to you, nor will he sell them to you. Moreover, he hopes that you can fulfill your promise to him. If you can't, he will take back these 100 slaves at any time. Sue, he said with a smile, All right, many thanks for Butler Brunei for personally bringing them here. Butler Brunei turned to give a few orders to the men and women behind him. Those people walked behind Sue E. with a look of obedience. All right, my task is complete. Butler Brunei nodded to Hines before seriously saying to Sue E., although the Lord Viscount didn't tell me why he gave these 100 slaves to you, as the Lord Viscount's butler, I must remind you that these 100 slaves are very important to the Lord Viscount. Now that the Lord Viscount has given them to you, it means that the Lord Viscount trusts you. I hope that you won't disappoint the Lord Viscount. Sue E. revealed a faint smile. Relax, if the Lord Viscount didn't have confidence in me, how could he agree to my request? Butler Brunei gave a slight nod, and without saying anything else, he turned to leave. After Butler Brunei left in a horse carriage, Hines couldn't hold back the curiosity in his heart and asked Sue, Hey, Sue, what is going on here? Are these people all slaves? And they were all Viscount Leslie's slaves? Why would he let you use all these slaves? What conditions did you negotiate with him? Sue, he raised his hand to stop Hines's questioning. We'll talk about this later. What about the houses I asked you to build last time? First, make arrangements for these slaves to stay. Hines suspiciously glanced at Sue E. He turned around and shouted towards the factory. After a while, Hines's nephew, Alex, ran out. After listening to Hines's instructions, Alex immediately called the slaves over to a few large wooden houses in the distance near the river. You called Alex to help? Sue, he looked at Alex, who was leading a group of slaves, and said with some surprise, I'm also too busy, so I simply called him over to help. Hines replied somewhat awkwardly, although this brat isn't that smart. He does work quite seriously. I had him help me manage this place, so it saved me quite a bit of effort. Sue, he revealed a faint smile. He patted Hines's shoulder and said, This is my fault. I put everything on you. Actually, there are more and more things to do, so I should have found a helper for you a long time ago. Letting Alex help is also good. At least he's one of us, so you can be assured. I was thinking the same thing. Of course, Chairman, if you have a suitable person, I'll immediately let this brat go back to managing the general store. That's not necessary. Since he's already here, then let him work hard. How about this? We'll use this chance to divide the work. Right now, Hines, you're mainly in charge of managing the production and all the small and large matters here. So you'll be the manager of this factory. As for the salary, let's set it at 30 gold coins a month for now. How can that be? Hines was stunned and quickly waved his hand. I have shares, so managing this place is something I should do. How can I get extra money? The shares and the things you do are two different things. If you put in the work, then you have to get the goods. Managing this place requires a lot of time and energy, so 30 gold coins a month is actually very little. But right now, we've just started, so we can only set this much for now. When we develop in the future, your salary will definitely increase. Not waiting for Hines to refute, Sue E. patted his shoulder. Then it's settled. Then, how can this be? Hines rubbed his hands with an embarrassed face, but in the end, he didn't say anything against it. Sue E. smiled and continued. As for Alex, let's set him as the assistant manager. As for the salary, no, that won't do. It's already his fortune that this brat can come and help. How can he dare to take a salary? You don't need to consider him at all, really, Hines said anxiously. Sue E. laughed and pointed at Hines. You get 30 gold coins a month, but he can't even get a single copper coin. How can he be happy? All right, I'll set this matter. Let's start with 10 gold coins a month. If you do well, you can raise it at any time. What do you think? Hines chuckled and didn't object. Seeing his face filled with uncontrollable excitement, Sue E. found it a bit funny. Hines was trying to get some benefits for his nephew. This could be considered human nature. So he didn't have any prejudice against this kind of thing. Just like he said, Alex could be considered one of their own, so he could use him without worry. Moreover, like this, it would make Heinz put in more effort into this factory, which could be considered a good thing. As for his and Alex's salary, it was just a small matter. That's right, Sue, you still haven't told me about these slaves. After the excitement, Heinz didn't forget to ask about the slaves. Oh, they're the people I borrowed from Viscount Leslie for the time being. Soon our factory will be increasing production, so we need large amounts of workers. These slaves are obedient and easy to use, so of course they are very suitable candidates. That's right, contact a few more construction teams in Banna City and quickly build a few more houses. The dwarven craftsmen I contacted will be here in a few days, so we need to arrange a place for them to live. All right, I'll remember these things. Is there anything else? Anything else? He looked at Heinz and shook his head. There's nothing else for now. The main problem right now is to take care of the living conditions of these slaves and dwarves. Heinz, you mustn't neglect them because of their status as slaves and dwarves. They are an important factor for the development of our company. I understand this. I'll definitely do my best to take care of this. Heinz gave a serious nod. He gave a sigh, thinking that he really didn't have enough people. Heinz was the factory manager in name, but he was also in charge of human resources and logistics, taking care of almost all the small and large matters of the factory. Right now, the factory was still small, and the scale of production wasn't large, but he already needed Alex's help. When it developed further in the future, he couldn't do it all by himself no matter what. But this kind of management talent was even harder to find than research talent, so he couldn't solve this problem for now. After explaining some things to Heinz, he entered the workshop. Because there were classes today, the 30 students he hired were all in class, so the workshop was a bit empty. He looked at the empty workshop and couldn't help sighing at the lack of human resources. For these students, their studies at the Baron Richto Magic Academy were more important. Even if they signed a contract, they wouldn't focus on their work here and would just treat it as a part of their studies. However, for a factory, the stability and continuity of the production staff was very important. Even if could recruit large amounts of students to complete this work, the students were deeply influenced by the traditional thinking of signs. They felt that becoming powerful magicians was more important than working here, but it was very hard for them to stay here for a long time like imagined. There are two solutions. One is to cast a wide net. Magic is flourishing in signs, and there are many magicians, but there will always be some magicians who aren't that successful. In order to live, these fellows need a job. The work here is considered specialized, so there will be some people who will come. As for the other solution, he fell in a deep thought. The other solution was to lower the threshold for drawing magic arrays. Although the revolving wind array needed for the magic fan was a low-grade wind array, and even the students in school could draw it, in Suyi's plan, there would be more industrial products in the future, and the magic arrays needed for those things wouldn't be limited to low-grade magic arrays. To draw a high-grade magic array, there would be a corresponding requirement for the strength of the magicians. At that stage, it would be very hard to recruit large amounts of magicians to complete this work. What Sui could do was to reduce the magic output requirement for these magic machines as much as possible, reducing the power and level of the magic arrays required, and reducing the requirement for drawing magic arrays as much as possible. But this was a very large project that required a large amount of time and energy to study. Just based on the revolving wind array needed for the magic fan, it was already very hard for Sui to improve it. If he wanted to make any new products in the future, he would face the same problem. Just relying on Sui alone, it was impossible for him to solve everything. Sui tightly knit his brows. He paced around the workshop while thinking about how to solve this problem. When he came to the workbench where the students were drawing magic arrays, there was a sudden cold breeze that shocked him. Looking up, he found that the magic air conditioner on the wall was still running. Why is it still running when there's no one here? Isn't this a waste? Sui muttered. Then he remembered that he had told them to use this magic air conditioner more often to test the data. I don't know if those fellows have found any problems, so I can collect them before looking for great magician Camilla. Thinking of this, Sui narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself in a soft voice. It seems like I have to find great magician Camilla to have a proper discussion. Chapter 31. Sui left great magician Camilla's lab with a dejected look on his face. When he saw the magic air conditioner, Sui remembered that when he was researching the magic air conditioner, he had asked great magician Camilla several times and obtained many suggestions on improving the frost array from him. If he extended this and invited great magician Camilla to be his research consultant, with his excellency great magician's powerful magic power, there were many problems that could be solved. When Sui found great magician Camilla, they had a good discussion at first. Great magician Camilla even agreed to Sui's request, allowing him to finish some magic array research that he couldn't finish with his current magic power. But when Sui mentioned that he could pay some gold coins, great magician Camilla's expression instantly changed. He angrily slapped the table and pointed at the door to tell Sui to scram, not even giving him a chance to explain. This great magician Camilla, does he have a grudge against money? Sui couldn't help thinking in a confused voice. Even if he knew that great magician Camilla didn't like combining magic research and business, he never thought that he would dislike it to this degree. Hey, uncle, what are you doing with that frown on your face? Does someone owe you money? There was a clear voice that suddenly came from beside him. No one owes me money, and I'm only 27 this year. Don't keep calling me uncle, all right? Sui snappily glared at Steele. After a night, Steele no longer had the disappointed look from last night and had returned to the appearance of a young girl. Of course, she was still very thin, but this was something that couldn't be completely recovered in a single night. Who told you to keep calling me a child? Steele gave a snort. She looked at the great magician's private lab behind Sui and asked in a small voice, What? Did you make grandfather angry? Sui depressingly told Steele about the situation just now, which attracted a burst of ridicule from her. Aha, you deserve it. You already knew that my grandfather didn't like this, but you still insisted on mentioning the remuneration in front of him. Aren't you asking for it? Sigh. How could I have known that he would hate me to this extent? Sui sighed and couldn't help but ask, Steele, why is the great magician so opposed to this? The other great magicians obviously wouldn't refuse. You want to know? Steele gave a sly smile. It won't do if you don't pay a price. Sui shrugged and looked at the sky outside the magic tower. It's not time for dinner yet. How about I treat you to afternoon tea? After ordering 2 cold drinks from a snack bar near the magic tower, Steele told Sui the whole story. Great magician Camilla had taught several apprentices before, and he had high hopes for 2 of them. He felt that as long as they were willing to work hard, they would become powerful magicians sooner or later, even surpassing him. But in the end, these few apprentices couldn't resist the temptation of money. At a young age, they were hired by several large chambers of commerce with high salaries and became one of the guards of those chambers of commerce. Since then, they had abandoned their magic research and hadn't made any progress in so many years. Great magician Camilla was very pained by their situation, and at the same time, he hated the actions of those companies. After accumulating this many times, he gradually formed this kind of attitude. Since grandfather saw your magic fan, he felt that your magic talent was very outstanding and he had high hopes for you. In the end, not only did you reject him taking you in as an apprentice, you even started your own company, so of course he was very disappointed. If it wasn't for the fact that Grandpa still had hope in you and that your magic power was indeed improving, he would have kicked you out of the magic tower long ago. How could he still allow you to see him at any time and even help you solve your magic problems? Now you're actually here to discuss business with him. Do you think he wouldn't be angry? So you really shouldn't believe me when I say that you deserve it. Regarding Steele's final conclusion, Sui could only smack his lips and had nothing to say. It really is a pity. I wanted to invite His Excellency Great Magician to be our company's chief researcher and even wanted him to be the spokesperson for our company's products. According to what you said, isn't there no hope at all? Sui said in a helpless voice. You're dreaming, right? Steele looked at Sui before asking in a curious voice. But what do you mean by chief researcher and spokesperson? Why have I never heard of it before? Chief Researcher. Actually, it's to help me research magic arrays for magic machines. Because your grandfather is a great magician and is the strongest, of course he can become Chief Researcher. Well, the meaning of chief is number one. Boss, you should understand. Then spokesperson. This is my first time hearing this. What does it mean? Spokesperson. It's a bit complicated to talk about. Suki thought about the celebrity endorsements on Earth and thought about it before replying. The so-called spokesperson is to invite a person to be the spokesperson for our company's products. To be specific, we can use this person to replace the image of a product. With this person as the representative of the product, everyone will think of the product they're endorsing when they see this person. Normally speaking, the person chosen to be the spokesperson has to have a good image, and it's best if they have a certain amount of fame. That way, everyone will know about this person and indirectly know about the product, which is a combined method of advertising. If the product they're endorsing isn't good, wouldn't it damage the image of the spokesperson? Steele immediately asked back. Sue E was stunned. Your reaction is quite fast. That's right, this is a combined method. The product and the spokesperson affect each other. So not only will the product have a problem with the product affect the image of the spokesperson, the problem with the spokesperson will also affect the product. So whether it is the spokesperson or the company choosing the spokesperson, they will all carefully consider it. You chose my grandfather to be the spokesperson for a very good idea. Still gave a soft snort. My grandfather is a great magician and is very famous in the entire Lampari kingdom. If everyone knew that my grandfather was endorsing something, they would definitely inquire about it. Besides, my grandfather has always been an upright person and has a very good image. That's why I thought of asking him to be the spokesperson. Sue, he spread his hands and said regretfully, but from the great magician's attitude, I'm afraid there's no need to mention this to him. He definitely won't agree. He'll be damned if he will agree. Steele nodded. She glanced at Sue E and suddenly asked, by the way, Sue E, since you asked someone to be your spokesperson, you must pay the spokesperson, right? Of course. How can I let someone work for free? Then can I ask, how much are you prepared to pay? That's not certain. It depends on who the spokesperson is. Normally speaking, the more famous they are and the better their image is, the higher the reward. If it's His Excellency, great magician, I was prepared to give him 1,000 gold coins a year. 1,000 gold coins! Without waiting for Sue E to finish, Steele's eyes popped out as she shouted in an exaggerated manner. That much? It's just a spokesperson? That's right, what about it? Steele looked at Sue E with a strange look. Hey, Sue, you didn't sell that many magic fans, so how could you give my grandfather 1,000 gold coins right off the bat? Do you have that much money? Sue E revealed a faint smile. You don't understand this, right? This is called advertising, and it is a very good investment. This 1,000 gold coins seems quite a bit, but if you consider the benefits His Excellency Great Magician brings, it isn't considered much at all. After saying this, Sue E couldn't help giving a sigh. It's a pity that His Excellency Great Magician won't agree, so everything I say is in vain. That's right, Steele. Are there any other great magicians you're familiar with? How about introducing them to me? Steele knit her brows to think before shaking her head. I do know a few great magicians through my grandfather, but Sue E, I have to tell you the truth. These great magicians won't even put your small company in their eyes, so you should just give up on this idea. I think so too. Sue E gave a self-deprecating laugh. My company doesn't have anything right now, so it's normal for those honored great magicians to look down on it. After putting this matter down, Sue E suddenly thought of something else. That's right. Still, Vivian said that before you left, you had her tell me to come find you. You have something to discuss with me. What is it? Yes, there is indeed something, but I found out that it seems to have been resolved. Steele smiled. Originally, I wanted to ask you if you could find something for me to do. Now that I'm by Grandpa's side, I'm very idle every day. It's boring, but you're always so busy. Maybe you can find something for me to do. Sue E looked at Steele seriously and thought that she suddenly wanted to find something to do. Was she trying to heal the wound in her heart through work? If you want to find something to do, that's not a problem. For example, When I said that I wanted to invite your grandfather to be the chief researcher, it's actually because I plan to have an exclusive magic array research lab in the city. If you're interested, you can come here to do magic array research and help me make a new product. I'm indeed interested in this job, and I was going to ask you to arrange this kind of work for me. But after hearing what you said, I feel that another job is more interesting. Steele narrowed her big eyes and said with a smile, "What job?" Steele slowly sat up and revealed a bright smile that was as bright as the sun. She slightly opened her 2 rows of silver teeth and said in a soft voice, "Sue-E, what do you think about letting me be your company spokesperson?" Chapter 32. Look carefully. Place the thick end in this direction and then carefully place it into this groove. Sue-E picked up a screw stub and placed it into the capping machine. You have to remember clearly from now on. After putting it in, you have to move further away from the machine, and you definitely can't put your hands in. Otherwise, when the machine starts moving, it will break your hands. Do you understand? Surrounding Sue-E in a circle were the 100 slaves Viscount Leslie had temporarily lent him. Hearing Sue-Ye's serious orders, they all nodded to show they understood. Good, I'll press this switch next. Sue-E reached out to softly press the capping machine switch. The light blue and red light, representing the flow of magic, flashed, and the capping machine's head fell down. Hong! The sudden explosion scared the surrounding slaves, and several timid slaves even squatted down with their hands on their heads, their bodies trembling. Don't be afraid. This isn't an explosion. Everyone stand up and look. Sue-E reprimanded them as he worked hard to restore order among the slaves. Under the gaze of the slaves, Sue-E took out the finished stub from the capping machine's groove and raised it for everyone to see. Do you see that? There's a cross-shaped groove on the thick end, which means that the process is complete. What you need to do now is to use your tools to see if the cross-shaped groove meets the specifications. Sue-E took out a sharp cross-shaped iron rod and inserted it into the top of the screw stub, perfectly fitting it. Do you see this? If it fits perfectly into the groove, it means it's qualified and can be taken to the next step. The slaves nodded as if they didn't understand. For slaves with status like them, magic was something that didn't have anything to do with them at all, not to mention the complicated and mysterious machine in front of them. If it was a normal situation, they wouldn't dare imagine that they would have the chance to touch this machine or even control it. But since they came here, under Sue-Ye's orders, Hines treated the slaves equally and took care of their daily lives very well. This made the slaves feel very grateful towards Sue-E and Hines. Therefore, when Sue-E pointed at 3 slaves to have them try to control it, even if they were a bit afraid of the machine, they still obediently came forward to control it. Actually, the capping machine was very simple to control, and these slaves had normal intelligence. Under Sue-Ye's personal guidance, they overcame their fear of the machine and quickly grasped the process of the machine. Seeing that the 3 slaves were gradually becoming familiar with it, Sue-E gave a satisfied nod. He signaled for them to keep working before bringing the remaining slaves to another machine. Compared to the previous machine, this magic thread rolling machine is a bit more troublesome to operate, so you have to seriously look at it. You can't make a single mistake. Sue-E picked another 5 slaves and showed them how to operate the magic thread rolling machine, ensuring that they didn't have any questions. After demonstrating the magic thread rolling machine, Sue-E brought the remaining slaves to the final machine. This machine was a small magic punch press that was newly developed by Sue-E and Master Lanus. This machine is relatively simple to operate, but it is much more dangerous than the other 2 machines. If you're not careful, it won't be a problem to turn you into a meat patty, so you have to be careful. Since these slaves didn't know how dangerous this magic machine was, Sue-E had to warn them ahead of time. He had to give strict requirements and standardized procedures to ensure that there wouldn't be any accidents. Look carefully. First, put this iron plate here. You have to be careful. You have to make sure that this iron plate is completely stuck to the model. There can't be any gaps. Next, you have to close the model and move back a bit before pressing the switch here. Pong! The 2 large modules in the small magic punch press were pressed together and the flat iron plate turned into a semicircular fan shell under the large pressure. This small magic punch press was naturally used to mass-produce the fan shell. In this workshop that had been built for less than 2 days, there were already 5 different kinds of magic machines. They were responsible for the components of the second-generation variable speed magic fan. With the help of these machines, the requirements for the craftsmanship of the workers were greatly reduced. So Sue-Yi could even throw away the blacksmiths in Banna City and just rely on the slaves that Viscount Leslie sent over to complete the production of the magic fans. Of course, the core component of the magic fan, the magic array base, still needed to be completed by the students. After teaching the slaves how to operate the machines, Sue-Yi scattered the slaves and taught them how to assemble the components into a complete magic fan. If it was said that assembling the magic fan was a very complicated process, then after dividing this process into several steps, it was incomparably simple. A portion of the slaves only needed to learn how to put the components together. Another portion of the slaves only needed to thread the thin iron wires together to create a protective net. There was also a portion of slaves that had an even simpler job, which was putting in the screws. These slaves had never received any education before, so naturally their comprehension abilities weren't that high. But as long as their intelligence was normal, there was no problem in grasping these simple processes. Sue-Yi had been busy all morning, and these slaves were already familiar with their own processes. The entire workshop was filled with a tense working atmosphere. Sue-Yi happily looked at his results and gave a satisfied nod. Next, he just needed to adjust the number of workers in charge of each process based on the efficiency of the slaves, making the entire assembly line more smooth. As for this part of the work, of course, it was arranged by Heinz as the factory manager. It didn't need Sue-Yi to personally take care of it. Seeing the slaves becoming more and more familiar with the machines, Sue-Yi suddenly found that he seemed to have overlooked an advantage of signs. Compared to the highly developed industrial system on Earth, perhaps there were many things that signs couldn't compare to. But there was one advantage that Earth couldn't compare to signs. That was energy. The main types of energy on Earth were oil, coal, water, wind, solar, nuclear, and etc. Among these types of energy, whether it was the most widely used oil, coal, or the developing nuclear energy, they all had a fatal flaw, which was that the pollution they caused was very serious. In any industrialized country on Earth, the environment would be polluted and destroyed in the process of industrialization. In the end, they would have to spend large amounts of manpower and resources to clean up the environment. As for the less polluted water, wind, and solar energy, because of the low efficiency of energy, they were far from being mainstream. Compared to this, the magic machines that Sue-Yi was currently researching all used magic arrays to power them. What kept the magic arrays running were magic crystals. No matter what kind of magic array it was, after the magic crystal used up all the magic inside, it would turn into a normal stone and wouldn't cause any pollution at all. Even the highest quality magic crystals were completely condensed from magic. If the magic was used up, the entire magic crystal would disappear and not leave a single trace. So naturally, there wouldn't be any pollution. Other than this, the magic crystals had an even bigger advantage, which was that they had a very high energy conversion rate. Only a small piece of low-quality magic crystal was enough to run the magic fan for 3 days. If it was a normal electric fan from Earth, it would take at least 3 kilowatts of electricity to run. If these 3 kilowatts of electricity were converted into energy, according to Earth standards, it would take over a kilogram of coal. At the same time, it would emit close to 4 kilograms of carbon dioxide. Whether it was the energy conversion rate or the pollution level, the magic crystals had an incomparable advantage. Not to mention that because signs had a very low industrial base, the magic fan that Sue-Yi developed had a much higher energy consumption than the electric fans that had been improved from Earth. If they could reach Earth standards in this aspect, the consumption of magic crystals would be even lower. As for magic crystals, they could be seen all over signs. Just outside Banna City, there were 3 large-scale magic crystal mines. Moreover, because magic crystals were too common, other than those high-quality magic crystal mines, No one cared about normal magic crystal mines at all. Heinz, go and buy some magic crystal mines. He suddenly spoke to Heinz, who was watching the slaves work on the side. Huh? Why are you suddenly buying magic crystal mines? Even if he was already used to Su Yi's wild thoughts, Heinz was still stunned. If we want magic crystals, we can just buy them from other companies. If we mine them ourselves, the cost will be even higher. No, we have to buy a few mines. We even have to buy as many as we can. The more the better. Su Yi said with a serious look. Remember, for something like energy, it will only decrease the more you use it. No matter what, holding in your hands is the best choice. Heinz looked at Su Yi with knit brows, not knowing why he would suddenly have this idea. But he also understood that his foresight in this aspect was far from Su Yi's. Since he made this decision, he must have his reasons. All right, I'll do it. Su Yi grabbed Heinz's shoulder and said in a deep voice, Remember, you have to do this quickly and keep it a secret. Do you understand? Heinz couldn't help muttering in his heart. Keep it a secret? This wasn't even worth mentioning. Was there a need to keep it a secret? Chapter 33. There's an old saying, dreams are plentiful, but reality is bony. Su Yi thought that since he was familiar with the industrialization process of his original world, he could seize resources ahead of time and buy 8 or 10 magic crystal mines. Then the price of magic crystals would increase, and he would have no worries just by relying on these magic crystal mines. Who would have thought that he would be hit by the cruel reality? This reality was no money. Sir Chairman, the company only has 361 gold coins left. According to my investigation, if you want to buy the cheapest magic crystal mine in Bana City, you need to invest at least 3,000 gold coins. Seabass expressionlessly stated this cruel reality to Su Yi, not caring about how ugly Su Yi's expression was at all. At least 3,000 gold coins? Su Yi calculated with a sunken face. Based on this, we need at least a month before we can consider this matter. Sir Guild Leader, this is still impossible. Seabass shook his head. Although, if everything goes smoothly for the company, we can indeed have a net income of more than 5,000 gold coins. But, Sir President, as a qualified company, we should at least keep enough liquid capital for ourselves. Otherwise, if something happens, I'm afraid the company will face a serious crisis. Other than this, forgive me for being rude, Sir Chairman has too many investments. Just the funds used for research take up a third of the company's income. This is not a healthy way to operate the company's funds. Oh, Su Yi looked at Seabass and said with a smile, Is this your idea or the Lord Viscount's idea? This Seabass was actually someone recommended by Viscount Leslie. According to what Viscount Leslie said, according to his agreement with Su Yi, he didn't have the right to make decisions for the company, but he did have the right to make suggestions and the right to know. So he sent someone to the company as his representative. Heinz was very worried about this, feeling that this was a chess piece that Viscount Leslie had placed in the company. Even if Viscount Leslie made it sound good now, he would definitely use this chess piece to influence the company's decisions in the future, even gradually controlling the company. Su Yi's reaction was completely different from Heinz's. Since Viscount Leslie already had 30% of the New Flyers shares, it was a reasonable request for him to send a representative to the company, so there was no reason to reject him. Not to mention that there were many things they needed Viscount Leslie for right now. If they rejected Viscount Leslie's reasonable request from the beginning, then the cooperation agreement from before would be gone. As for Heinz's worry about Viscount Leslie using Seabass to control the New Flyer, Su Yi scoffed at it. Viscount Leslie was a Viscount of the kingdom, a proper noble. In a small city like Bana City, other than the city lord, he was one of the top people. Because of the family behind him, his position in Bana City wasn't lower than the Lord City Lords. Relatively speaking, even if their Frestek Chamber of Commerce earned quite a bit of money from selling Magic fans, if it was just based on the strength of their company, they weren't that strong in Bana City. As for other aspects, naturally they weren't strong at all. For a powerful noble like Viscount Leslie, if he really wanted to make a move against a New Flyer, he didn't need to go through all this trouble. He had 100 more direct and simple methods to swallow the new flyer. So Sui happily accepted Seabass. After learning that Seabass had been the financial manager of a company before, he gave all the financial management of the new flyer to him. Facts proved that this Seabass was indeed a rare talent. In just 2 days, he had finished calculating the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's finances. It was very organized. It wasn't as messy as it was when Sue, E, and Hines were the only ones checking the accounts. Hines was very worried that Seabass was in charge of the company's finances, but Sue, E, was secretly happy. He felt that Viscount Leslie had done a great thing, sending him a rare talent. Of course, there were times when Sue, E, had misgivings about Viscount Leslie behind Seabass, so he asked this question. Hearing Sue, E's question, Seabass gave a bow. This is this subordinate's personal opinion. It isn't related to the Lord Viscount. Sue, E, said with a nod. It's fine. It doesn't matter whose opinion it is. Seabass, do you think that a third of the income for research is too much? Actually, I feel that it's too little. Because the current income of the company isn't high, this so-called third is only around 1,000 gold coins. Actually, this research fund is very low in my opinion. As the income of the company increases, I will continue to invest a large amount in research. Perhaps it will be more than you can imagine. Seabass was silent for a bit before saying with knit brows, Sir Chairman, I don't understand why you would make this kind of decision. Right now the Magic Fan sales are very good, and its prospects are very good, so you don't need to invest that much money in research. Although I also agree that if you want to keep occupying the market, it is necessary to develop a new generation of Magic fans. But you don't need to be in such a rush, right? Other than that, Sir Chairman, you've invested a lot of money in research. I'm afraid it isn't related to the Magic Fan at all, right? Sue, E, revealed a faint smile. He thought that this final question was the real question in Seabass' heart, and it should also be Viscount Leslie's question. Sue, E, really didn't know how to answer this question. After all, based on reality, most of his investment in research was not related to the Magic Fan. For example, in Master Lanus' Dwarven tribe, he had invested 500 gold coins in a single month. At the same time, after the Dwarven craftsman that he had agreed on arrived, Sue, he had invested another 200 gold coins in them, and it was gradually increasing. Other than this, even if he only had steel as a researcher for the newly established Academy of Magic, he had invested over 100 gold coins in it. This was a large amount of close to 1,000 gold coins, but it didn't seem like it was related to the Magic Fan at all. Moreover, the results of this research couldn't be seen in a short period of time. Even if Sue, he wanted to explain that this research was related to the future industrial system, there wouldn't be a single person on the continent who would understand. Seabass, let me ask you a question. Why do you think our company's Magic Fan is selling so well? Sue thought about it before asking back. It's accurate. Seabass had clearly already researched this question, so he replied without any hesitation. Compared to the expensive large-scale frost array, the Magic Fan that only costs 2 gold coins is much easier for most families who don't have the ability to lay down large-scale frost arrays and need to deal with the heat of summer. Not to mention that the consumption of the Magic Fan is very low. After buying it, they don't spend more than 10 silver coins on it each month, which is something that all the families that buy the Magic Fan can afford. So for these families, even if the Magic Fan's effects can't compare to the large-scale frost array, it can still satisfy their needs. So after seeing the Magic Fan appear, these families didn't hesitate to buy it, and because of this, the Magic Fan sold well. That's right. So he gave a nod of praise. Then let me ask you again, is the Magic Fan very hard to make? It should be said that it isn't hard. Seabass shook his head. Actually, not long after the Magic Fan appeared, there were already imitations. Only the quality of the imitations couldn't compare to the ones our company made, so it didn't cause that much of an impact. Moreover, Sir Chairman's methods back then were very outstanding, allowing our company to smoothly pass that crisis. After saying this, Seabass looked at Sue E with a trace of admiration. Sue E had raised the concept of branding in the face of the imitations, which indeed filled Seabass' heart with admiration. Before being sent here by Viscount Leslie, Seabass had done some research on the new flyer. He was surprised to find that after the imitations incident, the sales of the new Flyer Magic fans didn't fall, but rather increased. Moreover, when many people wanted to buy the Magic fan, they would first ask if it was a Shinfei brand. If it wasn't, they wouldn't buy it. This caused the small workshops that wanted to imitate the Magic fan to give up on this idea. Although there were some fellows who wanted to imitate the Shinfei brand on their Magic fans, he had withdrawn from the exclusive store system. This meant that the Shinfei brand Magic fans were only sold in a single store in Banda City. The other places were all imitations. This had completely cut off the path of imitations. So now Banda City was completely monopolized by the Shinfei brand Magic fans. Since it isn't hard to make, it means that it is very hard for us to stop others from making Magic fans. After saying this, a helpless look appeared on Su Yi's face. There was no patent protection law in this world, so even if he invented the Magic fan, there was no corresponding protection. If others wanted to imitate it, it wouldn't take any effort. Even if we don't have any problems in Banda City, outside of Banda City, no one knows what the Shinfei brand is. So in other places, we don't have an advantage. You should already know that in Saltan City, that is less than 100 kilometers away, there's a factory that also makes Magic fans. Moreover, their sales in Saltan City are also quite good. Chapter 34. So, Sir Chairman, I suggest that we open the market in other cities as soon as possible. I've investigated it, and the quality of the Magic fans produced by the factory in Saltan City can't compare to the Shinfei Magic fan. I believe that as long as we start selling in Saltan City, we will definitely steal the market there. Seabass said with a serious look. We definitely have to steal it, but we can't be in a rush. Saltan City is someone else's territory after all. Even if the quality is good, if we rashly rush in, it won't be that easy to steal it. Right now, I'm waiting for a good chance. And this opportunity is actually obtained from those doubts that you have. Seabass was stunned. He had been led around by Su Yi for a while and almost forgot about his questions from before, but he never thought that Su Yi would take the initiative to bring it back. Sir Chairman, the research you've invested in is not related to the Magic fan at all. Su Yi stretched out his right index finger and shook it. No, Seabass, in the entire industrial system, there isn't a single piece of research that isn't related to other things. Although the Magic fan seems very simple, there are many things that are related to it. You can see that the research I've invested in isn't related to the Magic fan, but when the results come out, you'll find that they are very related to the Magic fan. Each piece of research can even cause a large change in the Magic fan. Not to mention, who told you that our new flyer can only produce Magic fans? Seabass' eyes couldn't help popping out. Hearing Su Yi's meaning, he was actually developing a new product? He wanted to ask, but Su Yi didn't give him a chance. He stood up and pointed outside. All right, let's go outside and take a look. It's been this long. Steel and the other should be done by now. Seabass could only helplessly follow behind Su Yi. While walking, Seabass was digesting what Su Yi had just said in his mind. Industrial system? What is that? It sounds like it's very important. Other than that, what is the new product he mentioned? Will it create a craze like the Magic fan? Lord Viscount should be very interested in this. Su Yi and Seabass' conversation took place in an inner room of a house. After leaving the room, they found themselves in a relatively spacious hall. In the center of the hall, Steel was standing there, and in front of her, there was a Magic fan that was parallel to her face, blowing a cool breeze at her. This Magic fan was clearly different from the Frestec brand Magic fan from before. It was more rounded, and it was a bit smaller, making it look more delicate. This was the second-generation variable speed Magic fan that had already been developed and put into production. Steel on the other side of the Magic fan was wearing a pure white dress today. With the cool breeze, Steel's golden hair slightly fluttered, adding in the fact that her skirt kept fluttering in the wind. She looked very elegant. Steel was already beautiful, but now that she was in this position, it added a bit of charm to her. Looking at her from the side, her face was simply glowing. It was so beautiful that people couldn't look straight at her. Hearing the footsteps behind her, Steele turned back to look at Su Yi. She gave him a playful smile, which actually made Su Yi's heart strangely skip a few beats. If this fellow was placed on Earth, would she really become a star? Su Yi thought in his heart. After making a hand gesture to Steele to have her focus, Su Yi came to the other corner of the hall. On the side facing Steele, there was a painter. On the giant canvas in front of him, there was a drawing that was nearing completion. And it's very good. Su Yi took a look and immediately praised it. Other than the complete depiction of the magic fan and still, there was also a background of a field in the wild. The composition of the painting was very good, fully depicting Steele's image and charm. It made people unable to stop themselves from being attracted to it. Su Yi stood beside the painter for a while, and the painter finally finished his final stroke. He let out a long sigh of relief, and his spirited expression instantly became incomparably tired. It could be seen that drawing this painting had consumed quite a bit of his energy. Master Anlios, it's been hard on you. Su Yi brought over a cold drink that he had already prepared. Master Anlios only noticed Su Yi now. He took the cold drink and revealed a confident smile as he pointed at the canvas and asked, Chairman Su Yi, what do you think? Su Yi wasn't stingy at all as he gave him a thumbs up. Very good. Master Anlios really is the best painter in our Banda City. This painting is simply perfect. Of course it was perfect. This painter was someone that Su Yi had spent a sky-high price of 50 gold coins to invite. If he couldn't draw this painting, wouldn't Su Yi have spent 50 gold coins for nothing? Master Anlios laughed. Chairman Su, actually the main reason why this painting is this outstanding is because of young Miss Steele. I was just portraying her beauty. Don't you think that just by standing there, young Miss Steele herself is a painting? Su Yi turned to look at Steele walking over and gave a slight nod. I really can't agree to anything else. Master Anlios and Su Yi looked at each other and broke out in laughter at the same time. Hey, Su Yi, what are you talking about? Why are you laughing so happily? Steele came over and asked this. Master Anlios is praising you for being beautiful, Su Yi said with a smile. Thank you for Master Anlios' praise. Steele revealed a sweet smile to Master Anlios before turning to Su Yi and asking, What about you? Don't you think I'm beautiful? Su Yi couldn't help smiling, thinking that little girls really love to be beautiful. Of course I agree. Su Yi replied in a very serious voice. Is there anyone in this world who doesn't agree that you're beautiful? Tell me, I'll dig out their eyes. Anyway, they're useless. Steele gave a laugh before softly hitting Su Yi. You're too exaggerated. Although she said this, the expression on her face clearly revealed the joy in her heart. Su Yi looked at the canvas again before suddenly saying to Steele, Steele, I have a strong feeling that you'll be famous soon, and you'll be very famous. Don't you feel pressured? Why? Steele asked in a surprised voice. Isn't it just doing what you said and filming an advertisement? Why would I be very famous? Su Yi revealed a smile. As the first advertisement for the second-generation variable speed magic fan, he was prepared to go all out this time. With Steele's appearance and aura, it would be strange if she wasn't famous. They chatted for a bit before Master Anlios and Seabass left to settle the payment while preparing for the advertisement's release. Su Yi and Steele looked at each other before Su Yi made an inviting gesture to Steele. Beautiful young Miss Steele, can I have the honor of inviting you to lunch? Steele deliberately had a straight face. I'm sorry, this mister. I normally don't accept other people's invitations, unless that person is a handsome uncle. Su Yi's eyes opened wide in surprise as he pointed at himself. Handsome uncle? Isn't that me? Steele's face couldn't keep a straight face as she gave a laugh and said, You're finally willing to admit that you're an uncle? Then this handsome uncle. May I ask what you're planning to treat me to? How about a bowl of fresh and refined noodles like you? Damn, how can noodles be fresh and refined? And the same as me? This is what you don't understand. Noodles are slender, flexible, and elastic. While talking and laughing, Su Yi and Steele arrived at a small restaurant nearby and found a seat to sit down. Because of work these days, the two often ate together. They had already come to this small restaurant several times, so they were already familiar with it. Right, Sue-E, the matter I mentioned to you last time. Have you considered it? As soon as they sat down, Steele asked this. What matter? Sue-E was surprised, but then he remembered. Oh, it's those classmates of yours, right? Didn't I say last time that I would welcome them? Could it be that you're still waiting for my reply and haven't contacted them yet? Last time Steele and Sue-E had suddenly mentioned that although she had graduated from the Lampuri Royal Academy, she had kept in contact with many of her classmates. Now that those classmates knew that Steele was working at Sue-Yi's new Academy of Magic, specializing in magic arrays for magic machines, there were several people who were interested in this and asked Sue-E if he was willing to accept them. Sue-E naturally welcomed them. His biggest headache right now was the lack of talent, especially when it came to magic arrays. Other than him, he couldn't find anyone else to help him. After Steele came, she had indeed helped him with quite a bit of work, but Steele was only one person, so it was far from enough. Now that he could have several Steele's classmates, Sue-E was naturally very happy. Of course not, I've already contacted them, and there are 3 people who want to come, but... Steele paused, as if she was a bit embarrassed. They want me to ask, what kind of treatment are you giving them? Treatment. Sue-E looked at the embarrassed Steele and couldn't help smiling. Steele, I haven't even seen them, and I don't know their strength. So how could I know what kind of treatment I should give them? I understand that, but you have to give them a minimum guarantee, right? Otherwise, if they come all the way here and they're not satisfied with the treatment you give them, wouldn't they have come for nothing? Steele looked at Sue-E with a hint of expectation. You see, you gave me 15 gold coins a month. You can't give them less than that, right? How about this? Steele, you contact the 3 of them again and tell them that I'm inviting them here as the president of the new flyer. During this time, all their expenses, including transportation, accommodation, and any other expenses, will be paid by the new flyer. If both sides are satisfied, then they can try it out for a month, and their monthly payment will be 10 gold coins. If both sides are satisfied after the trial period, then they will become official researchers of the Research Institute, and their monthly payment will be the same as yours, 15 gold coins. If the Research Institute produces any results, the Chamber of Commerce will reward them according to the specific situation. As for the amount of money, it depends on the results. What do you think? Steele nodded repeatedly. Very good, that's all. I'll write them a letter in a moment. Sue-E smiled and was about to say a few more words when he suddenly glanced at the entrance of the restaurant and couldn't help but frown. Chapter 35. For people came in from the restaurant's entrance. Walking at the front was a middle-aged man with a plump figure that could be described as round, and the 3 people following him made Sue-E somewhat surprised. They were actually Simmerat, Reynolds, and Wella. What made Sue even more surprised was Simmerat's attitude. Because this guy's magic strength was ranked 2nd in the research lab, he had always been very arrogant. But now, in front of this plump middle-aged man, he was slightly bowing with a fawning smile on his face. Although he couldn't be said to be groveling, his attitude was extremely low. It was the complete opposite of the impression he gave to Sue-E. And although Reynolds, who was behind him, wasn't as obvious as Simmerat, his attitude towards the middle-aged man also revealed a trace of flattery, completely different from his usual carefree appearance in the research lab. On the contrary, Wella still maintained her usual cold appearance. Sue-E even saw a trace of disdain on her face. He didn't know if the target of her disdain was the middle-aged man or Simmerat and Reynolds. Steele saw Sue-Yi's strange reaction and turned her head to look at the entrance, but was immediately surprised. The small restaurant wasn't large, and Sue-E and Steele's seats weren't far from the entrance. When the 2 of them saw Simmerat, and the other 3, Wella, who was at the back, also saw the 2 of them at the same time. Sue-E, Steele, why are you also here? Wella asked in astonishment. Simmerat was originally persuading the middle-aged man to change places for lunch, but when he heard Sue-E and Steele's names suddenly come out of Wella's mouth, he was immediately stunned. Turning his gaze, he saw Sue-E and Steele sitting opposite each other at a table. There was no one else beside them, so his face slightly sank. This damn Sui. What is he doing? He actually wants to have lunch alone with Miss Steele in this kind of place. Damn it. Hey, Wella, why did you guys run over here? Sui raised his hand to greet Wella and Reynolds, intentionally or unintentionally ignoring Cimarron. This place is quite a distance away from the Magic Tower. You guys didn't come here just for lunch, did you? Wella shot a glance at Reynolds. Reynolds smiled awkwardly and replied, We came here to accompany a guest. Guest? Sue sized up the middle-aged man and found that he exuded a shrewd aura from head to toe. He didn't look like a magician at all. I'm afraid you're not a guest of the Magic Tower. Are you? Can you introduce him to me? Of course, I can introduce you. But Sue, I'm afraid you're not qualified to know him. Cimarron sneered. Let me tell you, this is President Farsak from Saltan City. President Farsak's Farsak Chamber of Commerce is one of the largest chamber of commerce in Saltan City. It's not something some small chambers of commerce can compare to. At this point, Cimarron deliberately glanced at Sue, the meaning of which was obvious. Sue, if you want to know him, at least wait until your magic power reaches my level. Hearing Cimarron's answer and seeing his condescending and overbearing appearance, Sue wasn't angry at all. Instead, he found it somewhat funny. This guy kept saying that he wanted to pursue Steele, but now in front of Steele, he made such a clumsy move. Could it be that he expected Steele to look at him favorably just because he knew the president of some large chamber of commerce? Sure enough, Steele lightly snorted and said with a sullen face, What's so great about the president of a large chamber of commerce? I don't know who's stronger, him or my grandfather. Cimarron, you don't have to brag about your magic power in front of Sui. Let me tell you, he just hasn't learned magic for a long time. As long as he has enough time, I guarantee that he will be much stronger than you. Cimarron never thought that Steele would refute him so rudely in front of everyone, and even stand up for Sue without any scruples. Thinking back to the fact that the two of them were having lunch alone just now, Cimarron only felt a wave of anger rush out of his heart, and his gaze towards Sue immediately became extremely sharp. Sue met his gaze with a smile and didn't back down at all. There was even a hint of mockery in his eyes. Cimarron, whether I'm qualified to know President Farsak or not should be decided by President Farsak himself, and not by you, right? Cimarron gave a strong snort. You think that an honorable person like President Farsak would waste time to meet a small person like you who hasn't even passed the magician certification examination? After saying this, he turned to the fat middle-aged man and adjusted his expression. He made an inviting gesture as he said, President Farsak, let's go somewhere else to have lunch. This place will ruin your mood. Urbana City has several good restaurants, so it isn't too late for us to go now. President Farsak acted like he didn't hear Cimarron's words at all. Rather, he carefully looked over Sue several times before asking in front of everyone's doubtful gazes, May I ask, are you the new Flyers Mr. Sue? When this was said, everyone was stunned. Based on this appearance, this President Farsak, who Cimarron said had an incomparably honorable status, actually knew Sue. Sue was also a bit surprised before saying with a smile, That's right, I am Sue. President Farsak, do you know me? Hearing Sue Yi's confirmation, President Farsak laughed. He directly reached out his hands to Sue and said in an incomparably polite voice, Although I didn't know you before, Chairman Sue's name has been like thunder to my ears, and I've long wanted to meet you. To be honest, other than some small matters, the most important matter for me coming to Urbana City this time is to have a good chat with Chairman Sue. I wonder if Chairman Sue. After saying this, President Farsak paused and looked at Steele on the side. I wonder if you have time now. Can you give me the honor of inviting you to afternoon tea? President Farsak was actually this polite to Sue. It could even be said that he was respectful. This made the people on the side stunned. Steele, Renault, and Wella kept looking over Sue and President Farsak's faces, filled with curiosity. Cimarron's face was ashen. He never thought that President Farsak, who he thought was a big backer, would suddenly be this polite to Sue, who he always looked down on. This was simply a resounding slap to his face. Moreover, it was in front of Steele. President Farsak is too polite. I wonder what you want to discuss with me? Sue, he wasn't in a rush to agree. Rather, he tentatively asked this. He's just discussing some cooperation. I think that Chairman Sue will definitely be interested. President Farsak replied. Oh. Sue, he looked at President Farsak in surprise. After thinking about it, he said to Steele, it seems like I'm busy and can't accompany you for now. Steele waved his hand without caring. Business is more important. You can go. Sue nodded. He stood up and gave Renaud and Wella a faint smile before leaving with President Farsak. When they left, President Farsak didn't even say a word to Cimarat's group of three. Steele looked at the stunned Cimarat and gave a cold laugh. He looked at Renaud and Wella before also giving a nod and leaving. Renaud and Wella looked at each other before giving a sigh and also leaving. Only Cimarat was left in the small restaurant with an ashen face. Hashtag after leaving the small restaurant. President Farsak and Sue found a quiet coffee shop. When they sat down, President Farsak said, Chairman Sue, it's hard to see you and time is precious, so I'll be direct. The project I want to cooperate with you is related to the magic fan. Sue revealed a faint smile. New Flyer only had a single product, the magic fan, so if they wanted to cooperate, of course it would be related to the magic fan. I wonder, how does President Farsak want to cooperate? If you want to sell a large amount of them in Saltan City, it's very simple. Our New Flyer already has a complete process. You just need to buy them. Sue said. President Farsak shook his head. Of course it's not that simple. If it was just like this, I wouldn't even need to look for you, right? Sue nodded. All right, then I asked President Farsak to tell me your plans. It's like this. President Farsak coughed softly, as if he was organizing his words. Farsak shook his head. If we sell a large amount of magic fans from New Flyer, although we can earn quite a bit, it isn't very efficient. This is because the losses on the road are very serious. So to me, it doesn't make up for the losses. Therefore, after careful consideration, I hope to cooperate with your company and open a magic fan factory in our Saltan City. Sue slightly raised his brows. He thought that this President Farsak was thinking further than normal merchants. Although his method was rather troublesome, as long as it went smoothly, it would be done once and for all. The profits would be much higher than buying from here. President Farsak, if I remember correctly, your Saltan City already has a company producing magic fans. Of course, it isn't our Sheen Fei brand magic fan, but according to what I know, the magic fans sold in Saltan City have already been monopolized by this company. How can you guarantee that if you open a magic fan factory in Saltan City, you'll be able to sell it? Sue asked. President Farsak's chubby face revealed a very gentle smile. If it's just producing the same magic fan, of course it won't work. But if it's the Sheen Fei brand, and it's the new generation Sheen Fei brand magic fan, I think it won't be a problem. Chapter 36. Heinz looked at the fatty, looking around the workshop, and his heart was filled with confusion. Hey, Sue, what is this fellow doing? How can you let him look around the workshop? Wouldn't we have no secrets like this? Seeing that the fatty actually wanted to try operating the magic thread rolling machine, Heinz finally couldn't help asking this to Sue. Secrets? Sue pretended to be surprised as he looked at Heinz. What secrets? Nonsense. Of course, it's the production process of the magic fan. This is our company's secret, Heinz anxiously said. If these things were revealed, wouldn't other people be able to make the second-generation variable speed magic fan like us? Heinz, you're too nervous. Sue patted Heinz's shoulder and signaled for him to relax. Then he pointed at the slaves working on a magic fan in the workshop and said, Look, there are all these people in the workshop. Do you think there are any secrets? How is that the same? They are all our employees. Heinz's eyes widened. Heinz's eyes popped out. Then again, they are all Viscount Leslie's slaves. Even if they had 10 times the courage, they wouldn't dare casually reveal these things. The problem is that these things will be revealed sooner or later, right? Sue gave a shrug and said with a relaxed look, Then again, I never thought of keeping these things a secret because it isn't important at all. How could it not be important? Hines couldn't help but wave his arms. Hines couldn't help waving his hand. Even if we can't keep it in the end, we can keep it for a bit longer. That means we have a bit more advantage over others. So, isn't this important? He gave a shrug. He thought that it would take too much effort to explain his big ideas to a small-minded fellow like Hines. So he didn't explain at all. He directly came to the side of Chairman Farsack, who was already preparing to operate the magic thread rolling machine. Hey, Chairman Farsack, operating this machine is quite dangerous, so I suggest that you don't try it so easily. Chairman Farsack turned his head and gave a laugh to Sue. Relax, I've been watching from the side for a while. There's no problem. Seeing that he was this excited, he didn't want to ruin his mood. He watched from the side, and if he found something wrong, he could pull him away at any time. However, although Chairman Farsack looked fat, he was very nimble. After watching from the side for a while, he operated the magic thread rolling machine very well and quickly finished processing a screw. Seeing the incomparably fine threads of the screw after it was processed, Chairman Farsack couldn't help praising it. Great! This is really great. Chairman Sue, although this is a small thing, if it was made by a blacksmith, it would take him an entire day to make this small thing. However, with this machine, it only takes less than a minute to make it. He laughed. He thought that you haven't seen the might of the advanced CNC machines from Earth. Otherwise, your chin would have fallen off from shock. Chairman Farsack, now that you've finished looking at this workshop, what do you think? He asked with a smile. Hearing this question, Chairman Farsack fell silent. He shook his head to look at the situation of the workshop for a while, before saying with a sigh, Chairman Sue, I have to say, your workshop has really opened my eyes. I thought that making a magic fan would be a very complicated matter, but after coming to your workshop to take a look, I've found that making a magic fan is actually this simple. It's just some workers without any special skills, but they can easily and orderly assemble a magic fan. To be honest, I never thought that your small workshop would have such a high efficiency. Let me guess, your workshop can produce over 300 magic fans in a single day, right? He gave him a thumbs up. Chairman Farsack, your eyes really are sharp. That's right, this workshop can indeed produce over 300 magic fans each day. Of course, this is only limited to the second-generation variable speed magic fan. As for the first-generation magic fan, because of the design problem, it can't produce this much. He didn't tell him that the workshop's working hours were strictly controlled to 8 hours each day. If they worked overtime, it wasn't a problem to produce 500 magic fans each day. Only he had a high requirement for quality, so he strictly controlled the output and didn't make up the numbers. Chairman Farsack turned back to look at the machines being controlled by the slaves and said in a thoughtful voice, Chairman Sue, if I had to say something, the core of your workshop should be these machines, right? He nodded with a faint smile. Chairman Farsack, your eyes really are unique. How about it? What do you think of these machines? What do I think? Chairman Farsack suddenly revealed a bitter smile. Chairman Sue, before I came here, I was very confident in cooperating with you. I even thought that you would obediently cooperate with me because there would only be benefits for you and no harm at all. But now that I've seen the machines over the past few days, I've found that our positions have been reversed. I have to admit, you've already taken the initiative. To be honest, I don't like this feeling at all. He laughed. Chairman Farsack, you're too modest. Since we're cooperating, there isn't any difference in status, and there isn't any initiative. Cooperation is everyone taking what they need and achieving a win-win situation, don't you think? Win-win. Chairman Farsack's little eyes that were squeezed by his fat lit up. This word sounds very new, but it's very reasonable. That's right, the most perfect result of cooperation is a win-win situation. But Chairman Sue, how do you think we should cooperate to achieve this win-win situation? He pointed at the machines with a grin. Chairman Farsack, I wonder if you're interested in buying a few of these machines back. Chairman Farsack was shocked. Chairman Sue, you mean you're actually willing to sell these machines to me? Why wouldn't I? He spread out his hands. If I don't want to sell you these machines, then why do you think I brought you here? But these machines, Chairman Farsak rolled his eyes and changed the subject. All right, since you, Chairman Su, are willing to sell them, I'm naturally very happy to buy them. But Chairman Su, I'm afraid these machines alone aren't enough to constitute a cooperation between us, right? Of course, it's not just the machines, there's also the manpower. I believe that you won't be able to find workers in Saltan City who can control these machines, so not only will I sell them to you, I'll also help you train workers. I'll also teach you how to assemble the second-generation variable speed magic fan in this workshop, until your factory can smoothly operate like this workshop. What do you think of these conditions? Chairman Farsak narrowed his eyes and carefully looked at Su Yi for a while before suddenly saying, Chairman Su, you're not joking? Su Yi said with a faint smile. Would I joke with you at this time? Chairman Farsak nodded. After thinking for a bit, he slowly said, Chairman Su, I have to say, these conditions are just too generous. I even suspected that you were lying to me for a moment. Giving such generous conditions, your request shouldn't be low. How about you tell me about it? My request, it isn't high, but it also isn't low. It all depends on what Chairman Farsak thinks. Su Yi replied, Oh, there's still such a strange request? Chairman Su, please speak. My request is... 2 days later, Chairman Farsak finished his discussion with Su Yi and sat in a horse carriage leaving Banda City. Watching the horse carriage disappear into the horizon, Heinz said with knit brows, Su Yi, is this really all right? Although we can earn 10 silver coins for each magic fan they make, like this, we're giving up on Saltan City. If we really calculate it, wouldn't our losses be even bigger? Not to mention that we're giving away all the magic fan technology we have right now, so there will be many magic fan factories like them in the future. When the time comes, our space for development will be greatly limited. Su Yi revealed a faint smile and said with a shake of his head, No, Heinz, you should look at the long term. The magic fan is something that isn't hard to imitate, so it won't last long. If we want to keep taking the lead, we need to keep looking for new things and changes. This is based on our continuous research. As long as we can keep taking the lead in terms of technology, we can keep taking the lead. There is something I can tell you right now. You have to remember it. Heinz looked at Su Yi with rapt attention. He knew that every time Su Yi said something in this tone, it was very important. A third-rate company makes a product. For a company like Chairman Farsak, even if they build a factory, it will only be a third-rate company that makes magic fans. It won't have that much of an impact. A second-rate company makes a brand. I've already explained the concept of a brand to you before, but I think you still can't understand it. You and I have worked together for this long, and you still can't understand it. Then in this signs world, perhaps there aren't many people who understand the meaning of a brand. Perhaps they know, but they don't know how to do it. And this is what our Frestek Chamber of Commerce is doing right now. The Shinfei brand is at least a very reputable brand in Banda City. As long as we don't do anything that ruins our own reputation, this brand can continue. The last and most important thing is that a first-rate company is the standard. This is the goal I'm working towards right now. But this goal is very hard, and we might need to spend a long time before we can reach this goal. But once we reach this goal, our new flyer can be said to be standing on the signs. Chairman Farsak might think that buying those magic machines from me is very profitable, but in my opinion, he has already fallen into my standard. Even if the Farsak Chamber of Commerce is stronger than us, they will still be thrown far behind us in the end. Heinz looked at Su Yi, not understanding why he had such strong confidence. In terms of scale, the Farsak Chamber of Commerce, that was one of the best in Saltan City, was several dozen times bigger than their small new flyer. Not to mention surpassing them, it would be hard to even approach them. But although he didn't understand Su Yi's words, Heinz felt that they were very powerful. At least this proved that Su Yi already had a long-term plan in his mind, so his actions shouldn't be messing around. Seeing Su Yi's confident face, Heinz's heart skipped a beat. Perhaps this fellow will really make New Flyer one of the top companies in the signs world. Chapter 37. Su Yi had explained many things to Heinz, but he didn't explain the most important point. It wasn't that he didn't want to explain, rather Heinz wouldn't understand, even if he did. Or to put it more simply, no one in signs could understand. Because this was the most important point, it was related to the industrial system that Sue-Yi had planned in his heart. In the process of industrialization, the light industry was the surface and the heavy industry was the core. Even if there were 10,000 or 100,000 Magic fans, it was just the development of a single product. It could only be said that the light industry in signs had a small development. If these 10,000 or 100,000 units were converted into various machines, it was a completely different matter. The reason why Sue-Yi chose to sell the Magic Punch Press and the Magic Thread Roller machine. These magic machines to Chairman Farsak, even agreeing to sell the technology for the second-generation variable speed fan. Other than for business considerations, the most important reason was to promote these magic machines in signs. These magic machines that represented the foundation of the heavy industry had a strong production ability, so he believed that they would soon become popular in signs. As for the popularization of these magic machines, it meant that the heavy industry had taken a very significant step forward. It was very important for Sue-Yi to create a complete industrial system in signs. These things, other than a mechanical engineer like him who had transmigrated from Earth, who else could understand? But there was one thing that Sue-Yi had to agree on. Although the heavy industry was the core of the industrial system, if one wanted to quickly earn money, the best choice was to constantly innovate new industries. So while Sue-Yi was researching new magic machines with a dwarven craftsman, he didn't stop researching new products. That night, Sue-Yi saw Viscount Leslie in the manor again. Sue-Yi, I heard that you've been very busy recently. Why do you suddenly have time to see me? Viscount Leslie seemed to like the pond in the manor very much. Even if the sun had set and the weather wasn't that hot, he still stayed in the wooden house beside the pond to see Sue-Yi. Lord Viscount, would you believe me if I told you that coming to see you is also part of my job? Sue-Yi smiled. Oh. Viscount Leslie looked at Sue-Yi before his eyes fell onto the strange-looking long iron box beside Sue-Yi. Is it because of this thing? Lord Viscount, you have good eyes. Sue-Yi praised before looking at the white-haired butler Brunei. Shaking his head, he turned to Viscount Leslie and said, Lord Viscount, help me put this thing up. Butler Brunei knit his brows. When he was about to speak, Viscount Leslie raised his hand to stop him. Viscount Leslie excitedly stood up and looked at Sue. What do you want me to do? Sue-Yi looked around the wooden house and found an iron shelf with a painting on it. He pointed at it and said, help me put this thing on it. The two of them were young and strong, so it was naturally easy for them to put this thing down. When it was put down according to Sue-Yi's instructions, Viscount Leslie looked around and couldn't help asking, Sue-Yi, now you should tell me what this thing is, right? Sue-Yi laughed. Don't be anxious, you'll understand it after you use it. After saying this, he pressed the switch under the iron box and turned to close all the doors and windows of the wooden house. Viscount Leslie and Butler Brunei saw Sue-Yi's actions and felt it was strange. Sue-Yi, what are you doing? Viscount Leslie wanted to ask, but he suddenly felt a cool breeze that blew over his face. It instantly dispelled the heat brought by Sue-Yi closing the doors and windows. It was different from the magic fan. This breeze was very cold. It wasn't like the breeze from the magic fan that made people feel hot when it blew over them. Not long after, the air in the little wooden house was completely cooled by the cool breeze that kept blowing, not feeling the heat of summer at all. After feeling this cool breeze for a while, Viscount Leslie looked at Sue-Yi and asked, Tell me, just what is this thing? Seeing the serious expression on Viscount Leslie's face, Sue-Yi revealed a faint smile. He thought that this Lord Viscount really wasn't an idiot. He could already see that this thing wasn't normal. This thing is called the Magic Air Conditioner. What does the Lord Viscount think of this name? Magic Air Conditioner? Air Conditioner? Viscount Leslie carefully thought about it for a bit. The so-called air conditioner, it means air conditioning. The Lord Viscount really isn't normal, understanding the meaning of this name this quickly. Sue-Yi praised. That's right, it means air conditioning. This magic air conditioner can create a cool space for you in this kind of hot weather. I think that this name isn't excessive at all. right? Of course it isn't excessive. Viscount Leslie's eyes turned back to the magic air conditioner, and after seriously looking at it for a while, the look of praise on his face became stronger and stronger. Sue, this magic air conditioner is your new product? That's right. Why did you bring it to me? Viscount Leslie was a bit confused. Since you've already developed it, you should immediately prepare to sell it. I can guarantee that as long as the price of this thing doesn't surpass the cost of a large-scale frost array, it will definitely sell well. The reason why I brought it here is because the Lord Viscount is a major shareholder of our company, so of course I have to let you take a look at the new product first. The second reason is because of the positioning of the product. Positioning? What positioning? Viscount Leslie and Butler Brunei looked at Sue with confused gazes. Before selling a product, we first need to determine the positioning of the product. Or to put it more simply, we need to determine what kind of people this product should be sold to. Sue slowly explained. Viscount Leslie pointed at himself. You mean that I am the kind of person that you want to sell this magic air conditioner to? That's right. Sue nodded with a smile. For this magic air conditioner, I've set it as a high-grade product for now, which means that it isn't suitable for normal families to use. It is only suitable for people with status like the Lord Viscount, and of course, the most important thing is that they have financial strength to use it. That's why I brought it here first. I wanted Lord Viscount to talk about your thoughts after using it. Now that you've used this magic air conditioner, do you think that this magic air conditioner is worth buying? It's like this. Viscount Leslie stroked his chin and thought for a bit before asking back. First you have to tell me, how much money do I have to spend to buy this thing? Sue raised 2 fingers. Viscount Leslie knit his brows. It can't be 2 gold coins. That would be the same price as the magic fan. According to what you just said, it should be 20 gold coins? Sue nodded. This price isn't bad. If it was me, I would definitely be able to accept it. Viscount Leslie turned to look at the magic air conditioner on the wall. Viscount Leslie turned back to look at Viscount Leslie. There's another question. Does this thing consume a lot of magic crystals? You should be very clear that it isn't that many families don't have the money to set up large-scale frost arrays. Rather, they can't support the consumption of large-scale frost arrays because that thing really does consume too many magic crystals. Sue revealed a faint smile. Lord Viscount, this is the biggest advantage of the magic air conditioner. For a magic air conditioner like this, although it consumes magic crystals faster than the magic fan, even if you let it run for an entire day, it would only consume 13 to 15 silver coins worth of magic crystals. Of course, if you want to increase its efficiency and use high-quality magic crystals, the consumption will naturally be higher. Hearing Sue Yi's response, Viscount Leslie and Butler Brunei on the side opened their eyes wide at the same time. It actually consumes this little? Even if it costs 15 silver coins a day, it's less than 5 gold coins a month. That's several times less than the large-scale frost array. Sue revealed a confident smile. If the consumption isn't several times less than the large-scale frost array, why would I research it? Viscount Leslie looked at Sue for a while before giving a slight nod. Very good, Sue. I can tell you now that if what you said is true, then I'm certain that this magic air conditioner will definitely sell well. Of course, it's impossible for it to sell in large quantities like the magic fan. But I think that the profit of this thing should be much higher than the magic fan, right? Sue said with a laugh. The Lord Viscount is wise. The profit of this thing is indeed several times higher than the magic fan. But to sell well, I'm afraid I'll need the Lord Viscount's help. Oh, what help do you need from me? Viscount Leslie looked at Sue with an interested gaze. Just tell me. I'm a large shareholder, so there's no need to be polite when it comes to me. Lord Viscount, the thing I want you to do is actually very simple. Chapter 38. It was another night. There was a large manor to the west of Banda's city that was filled with all kinds of luxurious horse carriages. There were countless people wearing luxurious clothes who had the aura of nobles wandering around the manor. This manor that was normally very quiet was suddenly filled with noise. If someone familiar with the nobles of Banda City was here, they would easily find that the people in this manor were mostly nobles of Banda City. If one had sharp eyes, they would find that in the deepest part of the manor, there was a middle-aged man with a strong figure and a serious face that was currently talking to the owner of the manor. This middle-aged man was the most powerful person in Banda City, which was Banta City's city lord, Lord Count Sean Samo. As for the handsome and young manor lord who was talking to the Lord City Lord, there was no one in the circle of nobles in Banda City who didn't know him. It was Viscount Leslie, who was deeply loved by all the noble ladies and young misses. Viscount Leslie always liked peace and quiet, but now that he had suddenly announced a banquet, the nobles of Banda City were all shocked. Even if Viscount Leslie's reason for holding this banquet was a bit funny, saying that it was to celebrate the birth of a nephew in Anvil Mars City, nobles liked banquets very much. They also liked to use banquets to improve their relationship, so the reason wasn't important. The important thing was that Viscount Leslie was actually holding a banquet. So all the nobles that received the invitation didn't reject it, and all came. Other than these nobles, there was a small portion of the guests that weren't nobles. But if one looked carefully, they would find that these guests that weren't nobles were all people with status in Banda City. There wasn't a single person that was a normal citizen that didn't attract attention. No one was surprised by this situation. How could an unrelated citizen enter a banquet held by Lord Viscount Leslie? So Sue-E obediently hid in a corner, trying his best not to attract anyone's attention. With his status, he really wasn't qualified to enter. Even if the new flyer earned a large amount from the Magic Fan, if one seriously considered it, they could only be considered a small company that had just started. In Banta City, even if there weren't 100 small companies like this, there were still 80. So Sue-E naturally wasn't considered anything. As for relying on his identity as a magician, what a joke. Sue-E hadn't even passed the Sorcerer's Guild's certification test. He wasn't even an official magician. So how could he be qualified to attend this banquet? Although Sue-E was not bad-looking, in this kind of situation, he naturally would not attract too much attention. Logically speaking, if he wanted to hide, it would not be a problem. However, beside this inconspicuous green leaf, there was a delicate and dazzling flower that was as beautiful as the bright moon in the night sky, so beautiful that it was impossible to ignore. So boring. Steele sighed and complained to Sue-E. Sue-E, I thought that Viscount Leslie's banquet would be quite fun, but I never thought that it would be as boring as the other banquets. Sue-E couldn't help rolling his eyes at her. Didn't I already tell you that this was a normal banquet? What can I do if you don't believe me? Humph. You're not embarrassed to say this to me? Steele angrily said. Who was it that kept telling me that the banquets of nobles were boring and that it was better to use the time to study magic arrays at home? Sue-E rubbed his face. All right, it was me. Then if a fellow like you came to this banquet, of course I would find it strange. I thought that there was something special about this banquet that attracted you, but I never thought that there was nothing special at all. I was happy for nothing. Steele pretended to be angry. Sue-E looked over still. This little girl had clearly been carefully dressed today. She was wearing a light purple dress that perfectly accentuated her figure, and her casually tied-up golden hair perfectly revealed her slender white neck, giving her a noble and elegant aura. Compared to this, her almost perfect facial features had a youthful aura that was filled with vitality. With these two different tastes mixed together, it made her look very charming. It was no wonder that everyone who passed by couldn't help secretly taking a few glances at her. She had only been standing here for less than half an hour, and there were over 10 young men who came to talk to her. If it wasn't for Sue-E standing on the side, this number would have increased by several times. If there's anything special, of course there is. Sue-E took a sip of his juice and helplessly explained to Steele. Steele, do you remember what we researched a few days ago? Steele was a bit surprised. You're talking about the magic air conditioner? Right. Sue-E nodded. Since Steele joined the research facility, she naturally joined the research of the magic air conditioner. It should be said that the magic air conditioner could be developed this quickly because Steele played a large part in it. How was the magic air conditioner related to this banquet? Steele was even more confused. Sue, he revealed a faint smile. Don't you think that with all these people in this room, it isn't that hot? Being reminded by Sue E., Steele immediately came back to her senses. She looked around in a daze and found that on the walls of the hall used to entertain guests, there were two magic air conditioners that kept blowing out cool air. It was no wonder the hall didn't feel hot at all. Sue E., it can't be that you and Viscount Leslie are working together, right? Steele couldn't help asking. What do you mean by working together? This is called cooperation. Sue, he reprimanded. Steele, actually, according to the normal procedure, you, as the spokesperson, should participate in this matter, but I saw that you weren't interested in promoting products in front of all these people, so I gave up on this idea. I wouldn't run in front of others and say, hello, come and buy our products, right? That would be too stupid. Steele said in a voice of disdain. You didn't include this when you told me about being the spokesperson, right? So I gave up on this very tempting idea. Then again, this is indeed a waste. Suey looked at Steele again before saying with a smile, letting an outstanding beauty like you become a salesman. If others knew about this, they would definitely scold me for wasting God's gift. Hearing Su Yi's words, Steele immediately revealed a smile. She quickly turned in a circle in front of Su Yi and proudly said, Don't you think that I'm very beautiful today? No, it's not today. I've always thought that you're very beautiful. Of course, you're especially beautiful today. Steele became even more proud. She slightly raised her head and gave a soft snort. You know how to speak. After pausing, she immediately asked, Right, since you and Viscount Leslie are working together, why didn't I see Viscount Leslie promoting this magic air conditioner for you? Sue E. couldn't help smiling. Viscount Leslie is a respected Lord Viscount. How could he come here to promote products? This kind of thing should be done by a businessman like me who is covered in the stench of money. After saying this, he looked at Steele before continuing, Now that I'm going to be a salesman, if you're not willing, you can just wait for me here. Steele rolled her eyes and quickly caught up to Sue. Let me see how a profiteer like you promotes. Sue revealed a faint smile. His eyes looked around the hall and locked onto a rather dignified middle-aged man. Honorable Viscount Zedeman, Madam, hello. Viscount Zedeman and Madam turned around and looked at this young man who had suddenly appeared, feeling a bit confused. May I ask who you are? I am Sue E., the chairman of New Flyer. This is my companion. She is Steele, the granddaughter of great magician Camilla. I've seen her a few times before. Viscount Zedeman spoke first. Steele quickly gave a bow to the two of them. Grandfather has always said that Sir Viscount Zedeman is an upright person and is one of the few nobles he appreciates. Now that I've seen you, I agree with Grandfather's evaluation. Viscount Zedeman laughed. Naturally, he wouldn't take these words seriously. When he turned to Sue E., he revealed a trace of doubt. You just said that you're the chairman of New Flyer? Yes, Sir Viscount. New Flyer. New Flyer. I seem to have heard this name somewhere before. Viscount Zedeman knit his brows and thought for a bit. He turned to ask his wife, but he still didn't receive a clear answer. As expected, Sue E. calmly replied, Speaking of the magic air conditioner, there's one in this room. Chapter 39. Late at night, the banquet at Viscount Leslie's manor was finally over. The guests had all left, and the manor was quiet again. In the messy hall after the banquet, Viscount Leslie looked at Sue E. talking to Steele, and he couldn't hide the praise on his face. It was like Steele had guessed. This banquet was held at Su Yi's request. The most important goal was to promote Su Yi's newly developed magic air conditioner. Su Yi had set the magic air conditioner as a high-grade product, so naturally it was targeted at people with status in Banana City. The most important thing was that they had money. At this banquet, because of Viscount Leslie's intentional actions, it could be said that all the guests met this requirement. Su Yi's request to Viscount Leslie was just this. He didn't ask him to fully participate. So Viscount Leslie didn't know what Su Yi would do. But he knew that Sue had gained quite a bit from this banquet. Because at the banquet, there were quite a few guests who came to talk to Viscount Leslie, and they would mention the two conspicuous magic air conditioners. After learning the price and daily consumption of the magic air conditioner, these guests all revealed their desire to buy it. Even the Lord City Lord, Count Sean Samo, was an exception. So Viscount Leslie was certain that this magic air conditioner would become popular among the nobles of Bandit City soon. The one who caused this trend, in the eyes of those nobles, was probably him, Viscount Leslie. If those fellows knew that all of this was planned by Sue, I wonder what they would think. Viscount Leslie thought in his heart. At this time, Sue finished talking to Steele and walked over. Lord Viscount, tonight's banquet was quite successful. I have to thank you. Sue said with a smile. There's no need to thank me. I am still a major shareholder of the Frestec Chamber of Commerce. Viscount Leslie shook his head. I do have a question for you. Sue, there are only so many nobles and rich people in Bandit City. Your magic air conditioner can only be sold in limited quantities, so the profit can't compare to the magic fan, right? You don't have to worry about that. Sue chuckled. Since the magic air conditioner is a mid to high-grade product, the sales plan is naturally different from the magic fan. I have already signed an agreement with Saltan City's Farsac Chamber of Commerce. After a while, we will open a store in Saltan City, specially selling our new Flyers products. When the time comes, the Shinfei brand magic air conditioner will also enter Saltan City. Saltan City. Viscount Leslie suddenly thought of something. Oh, right. There were two nobles from Saltan City who came to visit their relatives at the banquet today. You couldn't have come into contact with them, right? Sue smiled and nodded. Lord Viscount, your reaction is really fast. Viscount Leslie's gaze looking at Sue, he instantly became a bit more serious. If this fellow had even calculated this point beforehand, then it would be too terrifying. But thinking about it, Viscount Leslie couldn't help admiring his own foresight. It was a good thing that he had already seen that Sue wasn't normal from the previous events and decided to cooperate with him. Otherwise, if he missed this chance, he would have missed many other opportunities. Not mentioning anything else, just based on the large sales of the magic fan, Viscount Leslie had already earned over 1,000 gold coins in less than a month. Even with Viscount Leslie's net worth, 1,000 gold coins was not a small amount. Moreover, Viscount Leslie firmly believed that as the new flyer became stronger, the income from his 30% share would gradually increase. In the end, it would far surpass 1,000 gold coins. Lord Viscount, other than the magic air conditioner, there is something else I want to discuss with you. Sue then said. Oh, what is it? Just say it. Sue was silent for a bit before saying, Lord Viscount, it's about to enter September. Shouldn't your territory enter the autumn harvest stage? Viscount Leslie was stunned. He never thought that Sue would suddenly change the topic to this. Ah, that's right, it's almost the autumn harvest. Why are you asking this? Sue laughed. Do you still remember the little slave I bought from you last time? The reason why I bought her at that time was because she had lost a cow. This would have seriously affected the autumn harvest, so the guards almost beat her to death. Viscount Leslie had naturally heard Butler Brunei report this matter. He looked at Sue and said with a cold snort, What? Could it be that you want to seek justice for that little slave? Let me tell you, it is very difficult to successfully cultivate a qualified cattle. The value of a cattle is much higher than that of a slave. She actually lost a cow. Beating her to death is letting her off easy. Sue gave a sigh in his heart. He thought that even if he was very familiar with Viscount Leslie, he still couldn't change the indifference Viscount Leslie had towards slaves in his heart. Of course, Viscount Leslie's attitude towards slaves was normal on the signs. Sue didn't have the ability to change this, so he naturally had other motives for mentioning this matter. Lord Viscount's meaning is that cows are hard to come by and are very important to the farm, so they have a high value, right? Sue asked. Of course it's like this. I say, Sue, what do you want to say after all this time? Viscount Leslie was a bit impatient. Sue laughed. Then Lord Viscount, if I could find a tool to replace cows, how much would you be willing to spend to buy it? Viscount Leslie doubtfully looked at Sue E. Could it be that you've invented a magic machine that can work in the fields? That isn't realistic, right? The work in the fields is that complicated. What kind of machine can replace cows? Just think of it as an analogy. Lord Viscount, if this machine can replace cows and its efficiency far surpasses cows, what kind of price would you accept? Viscount Leslie thought about it before opening his palm. 50 gold coins for one. I'll take as many as you have. Sue Yi's eyes lit up. Lord Viscount, is this true? Nonsense. Viscount Leslie snappily said, It isn't like you don't know that most of my territory is barren. It is because I don't have enough people to work it, so there's no other way. If there's the magic machine you're talking about, of course I can have as many as I want. It would be best if I could fill all my territory with them. Other than that, I'm certain that not only me but also Banda City, even the entire Lampari Kingdom, and even the entire Signs, all the nobles need this thing. If you can really develop this kind of magic machine, I can guarantee that there will be a wild rush to buy it. After saying this, Viscount Leslie couldn't help asking, Hey Sue E, it can't be that you've really developed it, right? This thing isn't a joke. Sue E revealed a faint smile and shook his head. Of course not. It's just an idea right now. But now that I've received such an exciting answer from the Lord Viscount, I'm even more interested in developing this thing. Seeing the mysterious smile on Sue Yi's face, Viscount Leslie's heart was clear. This kid, perhaps he really has developed it. Actually, Viscount Leslie had wronged Sue E. Even though when he saw Vivian almost being beaten to death for losing a cow, Sue E had already made up his mind to research farming machines. But before this, not only did he not have the time, he didn't have the funds or the manpower to research this thing. So this thing had always existed in his ideas and hadn't become a reality at all. Now was different from before. Although Sue E didn't have enough time, he had quite a few more people under him. The most important ones were the 100 dwarves from Master Lanus' tribe. With the support of these dwarves who weren't weaker than Master Lanus, Sue E was able to agree to Chairman Farsak and provide him with the machines for the second-generation magic fan. But the work for this batch of machines wasn't that big, so the dwarves didn't need much time to finish it all. Right now, other than studying the machine knowledge Sue E gave them, they were in a state of leisure most of the time. So Sue E thought of farming machines. Actually, to Sue E, for a world like Signs that didn't have a high level of technology and production, farming machines were the most important thing. It was like Viscount Leslie said, a large part of his territory was barren because he didn't have enough people. If this was spread to all Signs, one could imagine how much barren land there would be on the continent. However, in comparison to this, the grain yield of Signs had always been at a low level. This directly caused the average living standards of the people on the continent to be very low. Even in a small Banda City, there were news of people starving to death each year. Sue E had learned from a conversation with Hines that 11 years ago, there was a large-scale famine in Signs because of the abnormal climate. At that time, there were starving people all over, and it even caused the entire continent to be shaken. Several small countries were destroyed in a single night because of this. Hines's terrified expression when he talked about this matter was still fresh in Sue Yi's mind. Sue E, who had transmigrated from the highly developed Earth, had never seen this kind of scene before. But just based on his imagination, he knew how terrifying this scene was. So he was even more determined to study farming machines. If I can improve the living standards of the people on the continent, perhaps my transmigration into this world will have a meaning. Sue E looked at the starry night sky and thought in his heart. Chapter 40. A horse carriage quickly came from a main road to the north of Banda City, quickly approaching Banda City. The window of the horse carriage was suddenly opened, and a young girl with a round face poked her head out of the horse carriage. Looking at the walls of Banda City that weren't considered grand in the distance, she loudly shouted, "Look, that's Banda City. We're almost there." Another girl poked her head out of the window and looked at Banda City in the distance, but her eyes fell onto something else. "E, what is that thing?" This delicate-looking girl pointed at a tall building outside Banna City as she asked this. The round-faced girl looked in the direction she was pointing and found that not far away from Banna City, there was a thick pillar that rose from the ground. There was a strangely large rectangular sign that was higher than the city walls. There seemed to be a picture drawn on the side of the sign that was facing the road. At first, they couldn't see it clearly because of the distance, but when the carriage got closer, the two girls realized that on the left side of the picture was a circular iron device with a base. The center of the strange machine on the picture was spinning at a high speed. They could only see a blurry image, but they couldn't see what was inside at all. Is this that magic fan? The round-faced girl's eyes popped out as she curiously looked at the strange-looking machine on the design. It should be. Look, it's clearly blowing wind. The delicate-looking girl replied. Her eyes turned from the left side of the picture to the right, and she suddenly called out in surprise. Isn't this Steel? Steel? Where is she? The round-faced girl also looked over and found that on the right side of the large picture, there was a beautiful young girl with a head of beautiful blonde hair. Although it was only the side of her face, this blonde girl's facial features were exquisite and her cheeks were incomparably smooth. Adding in her slightly fluttering white dress, it made people not want to look away. It really is Steel. The round-faced girl quickly recognized her. Why would her picture appear on this? Isn't this too conspicuous? It should be related to the magic fan. The delicate-looking girl said in a thoughtful voice. Look, there are words on the sign. It seems to have written, Xinfei brand magic fan, bringing you a bit of coolness in the summer. What does this mean? The round-faced girl rushed to read out, but she was still confused. I don't know. But last time, Steele said that she was the spokesperson for New Flyer. Could this be her endorsement? The pretty girl asked. The round-faced girl tilted her head and thought for a while before shaking her head. I don't understand. Forget it. I'll see her in a while anyway. I'll ask her then. Well, it seems like that's the only way. The pretty girl nodded and asked the coachman in front of the carriage, Uncle, can you send us directly to New Flyer? The coachman was a middle-aged man in his 40s. He asked, New Flyer? There are two places. One is the exclusive store they opened in the city, and the other is the factory outside the city. Where are you going? Is there such a difference? The two girls looked at each other in surprise. The delicate girl thought for a moment and asked, Do you know where their president usually lives? I don't know about that, but I've heard that there is only a single young man selling things in their store, and there isn't anyone else there. I think that the president is usually in the factory. The coachman guessed. All right, can you send us directly to the factory? The delicate girl said, I can, but they're building roads near the factory, so I can only send you there. You'll have to walk the rest of the way yourself. All right, let's do this. Seeing that the delicate girl agreed, the coachman flicked the whip in his hand, and the carriage immediately turned to the right, going out of Banna City to the west. The small roads outside the city naturally couldn't compare to the main road. The carriage jolted for a bit, and the two girls in the carriage couldn't help feeling a bit dizzy. But this situation didn't last long. After a while, the carriage trembled slightly before becoming very stable, as if there wasn't a single jolt. The round-faced girl couldn't hold back the curiosity in her heart and poked her head out the window again. Looking down, she found that the road the carriage was traveling on was very smooth, not seeing a single pothole at all. The road condition was actually much better than the main road from before. The round-faced girl was very curious and couldn't help asking the coachman, Uncle, why is this road so smooth? It would be great if the road we took before was as smooth as this one. The coachman laughed. This road was specially built by the New Flyer. It wasn't easy to walk on it all before. I've heard that in order to fix this road, the New Flyer spent quite a bit of money. Oh, their company is in charge of fixing roads? Shouldn't this be managed by the city lord? Properly speaking, it should be managed by the Lord City Lord, but that New Flyer. Right, that president called Sue, he isn't satisfied with this road, and he's willing to pay to fix it. So the Lord City Lord can't stop him, right? Therefore, the path you see now is the one that has been revised. Why is that president Sue not satisfied? Could it be that people can't walk on it? The round-faced girl asked in a curious voice. How is that possible? This road is the main road outside our bandit city. How could people not be able to walk on it? If it was up to me, although the road before wasn't as smooth, it wasn't bad and there was no need to fix it. But Chairman Su isn't satisfied. So what can he do? Other than that, I've heard that he isn't satisfied with this road. He said that if there are conditions in the future, he will fix something. What? Right, a cement road. I don't know what that cement road is, but for Chairman Su to be satisfied, it should be much better than this road. Right? Much better than the path we're on now. How smooth would it be? The round-faced girl said in a stunned voice. That President Su, he wouldn't be bragging, right? How could there be such a smooth road? The coachman laughed. I don't know about that. What those important people are thinking, it isn't something that a small coachman like me can imagine. The round-faced girl muttered in a low voice before returning to the carriage. She knit her brows and said to the delicate girl, Hey, Evita, do you think that President Su will have us study how to fix the road? The delicate girl gave a laugh and reached out to tap the round-faced girl's forehead. Akali, you only know how to speak nonsense. We are all magicians. Even if we agreed to stay with President Su, we should be studying magic arrays. How could it be related to fixing the road? The round-faced girl, named Akali, shook her head in a depressed manner. I don't know. But I feel that this President Su is a strange person. He's clearly not satisfied with such a smooth road and wants to fix it again. Does he think he has too much money? Evita helplessly shook her head. She thought that this Akali always liked to make wild guesses. She didn't know when she would be able to change this habit. But although she didn't make wild guesses like Akali, she was still very curious about this President Su. Why did he place such importance on this road? Clearly, the good or bad of this path had nothing to do with him. Could it be that this road was related to the things their company produced? But that didn't make sense. Or could it be that this President Su, he was too strict and didn't allow any problems to appear on the road near his factory? If it was like this, then this President Su, he wouldn't be easy to get along with. When she saw him later, she would have to be a bit more cautious. Evita and Akali's minds were filled with random thoughts. The carriage had already traveled a distance and suddenly slowed down before stopping. Two misses, the road ahead is being fixed. Other than the new Flyers carriage, other carriages aren't allowed to pass, so I'll have to trouble the two of you to walk over. The carriage driver's voice sounded. Evita and Akali looked at each other before opening the curtain. Akali jumped down, and Evita slowly landed on the ground holding the shaft of the carriage. The two of them looked over and saw that the road ahead was being fixed. There was only a 3-meter wide road left for them to pass through. If they looked at the situation of the construction after the road was fixed, it would be over 10 meters wide, which was very shocking. It had to be known that in the Lampari Kingdom, the two main roads that connected the entire kingdom were only 10 meters wide. Looking into the distance, there was a wide river flowing past. On the side of the river, there was a large, empty space. There were several large buildings scattered around, and people could be seen going in and out of those buildings from time to time. Whether it was those buildings or the construction site, it was a lively scene. It was as if they weren't affected by the heat at all. This was the first time the two girls had seen such a lively scene. They couldn't help looking at it for a while before remembering their goal this time. Akali rolled her eyes and walked to the side of the people fixing the road. She wanted to reach out her hand to ask a question, but she found that this person was covered in dust. She put down her hand and raised her voice to shout, "Hey, hello. Excuse me, is this the new flyer?" That person turned around and Akali jumped in fright. This person's face was also covered in dust, and there were a few gullies formed by his sweat, making him look quite fierce. But when he saw that it was a little girl in front of him, that person revealed a smile, and that fierceness disappeared in an instant. "That's right, this is the new flyer. Are you looking for someone?" That person's smile was very bright, and his voice was very bright. It instantly dispelled the nervousness in Akali's heart. "Right, we're here to find Chairman Su. Can I trouble you to help us report this? Just say that we were introduced by Steele." Akali said loudly. Hearing this, that person was clearly surprised. He looked at Akali and then looked at Evita not far away. He said in shock, "You're Steele's classmates?" This time, it was Akali and Evita's turn to be surprised. Akali couldn't help but ask, "How do you know we're Steele's classmates? Are you very familiar with President Sue-E? Did he tell you?" That person grinned and revealed a set of white teeth. "Yes, I'm very familiar with Sue-E. I can guarantee that no one in this world is more familiar with him than me, because I'm Sue-E." Chapter 41. Following the expansion of the factory, he had to take care of more and more things. Following that, he had to spend more and more time in the factory. In the end, he decided to build a small room to be his office. He brought Akali and Evita into his office. He first cleaned them up and poured them a cup of water before sitting down and seriously examining the two of them. These two girls should be around the same age as Steele. The girl called Akali was a bit more lively, and Evita was a bit more quiet. This could be seen from their attire. Even though they were both wearing magic robes, Akali's magic robe was above her knees and completely exposed her calves. It was clear that it had been specially modified. Other than that, the magic robe she was wearing had some small decorations that made her look a bit more lively. In contrast, Evita's magic robe was completely in the traditional style. It was normal, and the bottom almost reached her heels without any other modifications. The only difference was that there was a small light blue flower pinned to her chest, showing that Evita was still a young girl. While Sue-E was examining the two of them, Akali and Evita were also curiously examining him. In the letter Steele had written to them, she had described Chairman Sue-E quite a few times. According to Steele, this Chairman Sue-E should be a somewhat handsome uncle. But when the two of them saw Sue-E for the first time, they only saw a guy covered in dirt. His face was so dirty that they couldn't even see his face clearly. So how could they see that he was handsome? But when Sue-E received them, he took the time to wash his face. After revealing his true appearance, the two of them agreed with Steele's evaluation. To be more accurate, it was the first half of the evaluation. This Chairman Sue-E was indeed quite handsome. His facial features were good, his eyebrows were high, his eyes were clear, and his nose was straight. But he was still very young and didn't look much older than them. How did he look like an uncle? Compared to Akali, who was focused on Sue-Yi's appearance, Evita's attention was more focused on Sue-Yi's movements. Evita always believed that a person's true personality came from their actions and actions. So from the first time she saw Sue-Yi, Evita had been observing him. She wanted to use these small actions to judge what kind of person Sue-Yi was. If he was really as good as Steele said, then she would consider working here. Otherwise, even if Steele pulled them over, she could only apologize. The result of her observation made Evita very satisfied. When they met for the first time, because Sue-Yi was covered in dust, he deliberately moved a bit away from the two of them to avoid dirtying them. Just this action made Evita have a bit of a good impression of him. After coming to this office, Sue-Yi wasn't in a rush to talk to the two of them. Instead, he went to another small room to clean himself. At the same time, he changed his clothes, showing his respect for the two of them. Afterwards, when he brought water to the two of them, Evita paid special attention to his fingers. She found that not only were his fingers long, his nails were also very neatly trimmed. Moreover, there wasn't a trace of excess exposed on the outside. The inside of his nails was also very clean. It could be seen that he was very careful when he cleaned himself. Because of this, Evita's evaluation of Sue-Yi increased by another 10%. Other than this, Evita was also observing Sue-Yi's various actions. When a person walked, bent, waved their arms, and even small actions when they spoke would often reveal their true personality. It was very hard to hide. And through Evita's observation, she could tell that Chairman Sue-Yi should be a careful and cautious person, but also a straightforward and generous person. No wonder he was able to successfully establish a company and develop it so quickly. Evita praised inwardly. Steele praises him so much because he has a lot of good points. "The two of you, can I ask you a question first?" Sue-Yi suddenly said. "Feel free to ask. We'll answer all your questions. Akali said with a smile. Of course, if Sir Chairman asks something too personal, then don't blame us for going back on our words. Sue revealed a faint smile, thinking that this Akali really was lively. This question is a bit personal because I want to ask, since you graduated from the Lampuri Royal Academy like Steel, you should be considered rare magic geniuses in the kingdom. So why did you choose to work for me? No, Sir Chairman. Are you mistaken? We just came to take a look. We didn't say that we would definitely work here. Akali quickly waved her hand as she spoke. Evita softly pushed Akali, indicating for her to restrain herself a bit. No matter what, they had been invited here this time. Whether it was travel expenses or accommodation expenses, they would all be paid for by New Flyer, so the other side had to be a bit more polite. Sue, he didn't mind at all as he laughed and continued. All right, then I'll change my words. Since you're here, you must be interested in the work here, right? What I want to ask now is, what kind of things should I show you to make the two of you stay? Isn't that simple? As long as you give us a salary of 30 gold coins a month, we will definitely stay without another word. Akali casually replied. Sue, he shook his head. I'm afraid I can't do anything about this. Steele is currently a researcher at the research facility, and her salary is only 15 gold coins a month, so I can't give you double her salary. Chairman, sir, don't listen to her nonsense. Evita couldn't help but interrupt. Evita couldn't help but speak up. Steele has already clearly stated your conditions in the letter. We came this time to see what kind of work you want us to do here. If the content of the job is suitable for us, then we should choose to stay. This time, it was Akali who glared at Evita. This fellow, why was she acting so low? Wouldn't she be at the mercy of this chairman later? Work content. I have a few blueprints here. You can have a general understanding of the work after looking at them. Sue bent over to take out several blueprints from his desk and gave them to the two of them. Akali and Evita curiously took the blueprints. Looking over them, they found that there were some magic arrays on the blueprints. But it was different from the standard magic arrays they learned at Lampuri Academy. These magic arrays only had rough designs, and there were some requirements on the side of the blueprints. For example, the blueprint Evita was looking at. It should have been a revolving wind array, but there were 3 requirements on the blueprint. The first requirement was that the revolving wind array had to reduce the speed of the whirlwind. The second requirement was that the array had to operate normally for at least 10 hours with the support of the magic crystal. The third requirement was that the whirlwind generated by the array had to maintain a stable speed. These 3 requirements seemed very simple, but when Evita carefully thought about it, she couldn't help knitting her brows. Changing a magic array wasn't a hard matter. Evita felt that she could do any one of these requirements, but when these 3 requirements were added together, she felt that it was very troublesome. Sir Chairman, does Steel normally change magic arrays based on these requirements? Evita asked Sui. On pretty much. Of course, it's usually me who makes the request, and then we'll study how to change it together. Sui said, look at these blueprints and see if there are any suggestions you can make. Evita and Akali looked at each other, thinking that this should be a test for them. The two of them didn't hesitate and asked Sue for a pen and paper before studying the blueprints. Seeing how focused the two of them were, Sue revealed a smile. He filled the cups in front of the two of them and then told them that he was leaving before leaving the office. He left the two of them alone in this quiet space to ponder. Outside the office, there was already a large building that had been erected on the empty ground. Other than the magic fan workshop that had been built first, there was another larger building that was made of stone. This was the magic machine workshop that the dwarven craftsmen normally worked in. When this workshop was first built, Heinz was very confused because he didn't have any concept of magic machines, so he didn't know what they were used for. But when Sue signed a contract with Chairman Farsak and sold him 5 magic machines, Heinz's attitude immediately changed. This was because, according to what Sui said, the cost of these 5 magic machines was only 27 gold coins, but he sold them to Chairman Farsak for 200 gold coins. The profit was as high as 8 times the original amount. Not to mention that selling these magic machines was just the beginning. In the future, Whether it was repairing the 5 magic machines or changing parts, Chairman Farsack could only do it in New Flyer. He even needed the help of New Flyer to train the people to operate the magic machines. These things also needed to be paid. As for the price, even Hines, who thought he was black-hearted, felt that Sue-E was just too black-hearted after seeing the contract. Sue-E only had one explanation for this. There's no other way. This is the power of a monopoly. But even like this, Chairman Farsack still had a good chat with Sue-E. His expression even seemed like he was the one who had gained a large advantage. So Hines could only give a sigh in his heart. Sue-E's talent in earning money really wasn't something he could compare to. It was also because of the large profit from selling the 5 magic machines that the Magic Machine Workshop suddenly became popular. The dwarves who received the praise and encouragement were all very enthusiastic during this time. Other than eating and sleeping every day, they spent all their time in the workshop, saying that they would do their best to complete the tasks Sue-E gave them. Of course, the most direct reason was Sue-Ye's promise. If they could develop the magic harvester, each person would be rewarded 1 gold coin. Chapter 42. When Sue-E walked in the Magic Machine Workshop, there were 100 dwarves working hard in the workshop. These 100 dwarves were in charge of different jobs. One of them was in charge of producing the magic thread rolling machine and the other 5 magic machines needed for the magic fan, while the other was in charge of researching the new magic machines that Sue-E had given them. During this time, the focus of their research was on the magic harvester. After talking to Viscount Leslie last time, Sue-E was certain that the agricultural machines had great prospects in the signs, so he began researching after coming back. Because they were about to enter the autumn harvest, Sue-Ye's first goal was the small agricultural harvester. This research was divided into 2 parts. One was the magic array that Sue-E and Steele were researching together to drive the harvester. The other was the mechanical design of the harvester that the dwarves were in charge of. Sue-Ye's work was the most important. He had to perfectly combine the power of the magic array with the harvester, and to do this, he needed large amounts of data. Because of this, he had been running back and forth between the workshop outside the city and the research facility in Banna City every day. Of course, there were rewards for his hard work. After this period of research, the small magic harvester had already taken shape. Right now, in this workshop, the dwarves in charge of researching the new magic machines had already made a magic harvester that was only a bit similar to the harvesters on Earth, and were currently testing it. Seeing Sue-E come in, the dwarf Camby, who was appointed as the workshop manager by Sue-E, came over. "Hey, Sue." "Oh, no. Chairman, you're here to see the situation with the magic harvester again?" Camby raised a short and thick arm to greet Sue-E. "All right, Camby, just call me by my name." Sue-E nodded with a smile. "That's right. Can't you see that the wheat in the Lord Viscount's field is already turning yellow? It seems like we'll be harvesting in less than a month. If we don't hurry up and make the magic harvester before the wheat matures, we'll have to wait at least half a year. Don't worry, our brothers have been working overtime these days. You see, this thing has actually been made, but there are always some small problems. Otherwise, it can be done directly. Discovering the problem now is better than having problems in the future." Sue-E and Camby walked to the side of the dwarves who were adjusting the magic harvester and carefully asked them. They found that the problem they encountered was that after the machine ran at high speeds for a period of time, there would be a clear situation where it wasn't running smoothly. There was no need to check. Sue-E knew that there must be something wrong with the bearings. As expected, when he opened it, the magic harvester's shaft was clearly worn out, causing the shaft to be uneven, which naturally affected its operation. Sue-E was actually helpless about this because it was completely caused by the material of the bearing. Because of the limitations of the iron smelting technology on the signs, there wasn't a steel alloy that was both resistant to wear and tension that was suitable for making bearings. Whether it was white iron or gray iron, it wasn't enough to make this kind of bearing that needed high-speed friction. Although the magic fan from before also needed high-speed bearings. Because the magic fan's power output wasn't that high, the pressure it created wasn't that high, so it could be handled with simple iron bearings. But if it was the magic harvester that needed high power, it was very easy for problems to occur. So he couldn't solve the material problem for now. So after carefully considering it, he could only compromise. He had the dwarves add an iron ball roller in the middle of the bearing, which would reduce the friction and increase the life of the bearing. Of course, this would also reduce the power output. So he had to consider changing the magic array to ensure that the magic array could produce enough power. AI. In the end, the industrial system on the continent is just too weak. If it was like Earth, there would be several kinds of steel alloys to choose from. How could it be this troublesome? Seeing the dwarves being busy again because of his small change, he couldn't help shaking his head as he gave a sigh in his heart. Thinking of this, he naturally thought of the material research lab he had set up in the dwarven tribe. Although the 500 gold coins he promised was mostly for the 100 dwarven master blacksmiths, he still had a bit of hope in his heart. If the dwarves of the tribe could really make a breakthrough in their material research, the 500 gold coins he invested every month would be worth it. Of course, as a mechanical engineer, he knew that there was no tricks in material research at all. He could only improve it bit by bit and couldn't rush it at all. Forget it. The so-called mechanical engineers exist to solve these problems. Completing tasks under limited conditions is the meaning of my existence. Thinking of this, he habitually encouraged himself in his heart. Then he realized that because of this small change, he had to make corresponding changes to the magic array. Thinking of modifying the magic array, he naturally thought of the two girls in the office. Oh no, I was so focused on my work here that I almost forgot about them. He slapped his thigh and pulled Kanbai over to give him some instructions. He then hastily left the workshop and returned to the office. Sorry, I was busy. He pushed open the office door and was about to apologize when he suddenly saw Akali and Evita sprawled on the table, concentrating on modifying the magic array blueprint. He immediately stopped his words. Until he stood at the door for a long while. Akali was probably tired and stretched herself. Then she noticed Sir Chairman, when did you return? Akali asked in astonishment. Hearing Akali's words, Evita was startled and turned to look at Sui. Sui faintly smiled. It's been a while. But seeing the two of you so focused, I didn't want to disturb you. What's there to disturb? Akali knocked her head with her small fist and complained, Sir Chairman, the blueprints you gave us are really troublesome. Evita and I thought for half a day and couldn't even complete a single one. Do you think we're too stupid and can't even solve these problems? How could that be? Sui laughed. To tell you the truth, these problems took me several days to solve. If you can solve them all in such a short time, do you believe that I won't make you stay even if I pay you 100 gold coins a month? Akali couldn't help rolling her eyes at Sui. You clearly know that we can't do it, so you're purposely giving us such a high salary to keep us in suspense. Evita noticed something else. Sir Chairman, you mean to say that these blueprints are problems that you've already solved? Then, can you let me see the solution? Sui shook his head. I'm afraid I can't because the final solution is our company's secret and won't be easily shown to others. Evita let out a disappointed sigh and lowered her head. Of course, if you officially join our company, then these secrets won't be secrets to you. Sui said with a smile. Akali said dejectedly, Sir Chairman, the blueprints you gave are so difficult that even if we wanted to join your company, you wouldn't want us, right? That might not be the case. Sui shook his head with a faint smile. Can you let me see your solution? Taking the blueprints from the two of them, Sui seriously looked over them and couldn't help nodding in satisfaction. Even if the two of them didn't give a complete solution based on the ideas they left behind on the blueprints, Sui could see that they were indeed worthy of graduating from the Lampcurie Royal Academy. They had a very good understanding of magic arrays, and the ideas they gave were of a very high level, even coming close to the solutions Sui finally came up with. Moreover, based on their ideas, it could be seen that there was a difference in their personalities. Compared to them, Akali's ideas were more active and more imaginative. There were some bold ideas in her plans that could even be considered whimsical. As for Evita, she was a bit more normal, but it could be seen that her foundations were very solid. Every step of the solution had a solid foundation, and the overall idea was close to perfect. If Evita was given enough time, he believed that she would be able to come up with a realistic plan in the end. After looking over these blueprints, Sue-E was very happy. Although these two Steele's classmates weren't considered powerful magicians, it was like Steele had said, the two of them were qualified for the current work of the research facility. If they joined, adding in Steele, Sue-E would have 3 more reliable helpers, which would greatly increase the efficiency of his magic array research. Thinking of this, Sue-E put down the blueprints and met their expectant gazes. He revealed a bright smile to them and said, "I have to say, the two of you are very outstanding, completely meeting the requirements of our Magic Research Institute of New Flying Chamber of Commerce. Now I want to seriously ask the two of you a question. May I ask, are you willing to join our new flyer?" Chapter 43. The hot days continued, and in the blink of an eye, it was already the middle of August. That day, the Frestec Chamber of Commerce's workshops were filled with joy. Almost everyone had smiles that came from the bottom of their hearts. As for the reason, it was very simple. It was because today was payday. According to the rules set by Sue-E when he established the factory, the 15th of each month was a fixed payday. This was the first time the factory had been established for a month, so it was the first proper payday. Naturally, it had to be formal and could even be considered a bit grand. Seabass came to the factory early and gave the financial report of last month to Sue-E and Hines to look over. Sue-E always believed in not doubting the people he used and not using the people he doubted. He only looked over the financial report and didn't care about it all. Hines, on the other hand, had carefully looked it over several times. Almost every number had to be verified by Seabass before he would let it go. Towards Hines's actions, Sue-E was a bit helpless, but he didn't oppose it. As the third largest shareholder of the new flyer after himself and Viscount Leslie, Hines had enough qualifications and reason to do this. Not to mention that with him inspecting him, it saved Sue-E quite a bit of effort. After an intense and exciting morning, it was noon in the blink of an eye. All the workers in the 2 workshops gathered together and began to line up to receive their paychecks. The first to come forward was the dwarf Camby. As the director of the Magic Machine Workshop, Camby's salary was naturally higher than the other dwarves. It was around the same level as Hines, which was set at 20 gold coins a month. The one who came forward next was Alex. As Hines's assistant, Alex's salary was 10 gold coins, which is a bit higher than normal workers. It was the other dwarves other than Camby. Putting aside the dwarves who were affected by trivial matters or illness, the other dwarves all received a salary of 8 gold coins a month. When they opened the money pouch that Seabass handed over and found 8 glittering gold coins inside, the dwarves were all grinning from ear to ear. Some dwarves were even so excited that they started dancing on the spot. Just as Master Lanus had lamented, the dwarves' current lives were very difficult. When these dwarves lived in the tribe before, although they didn't starve, other than the fine wine that they could brew and enjoy at will, all other living materials were very poor. After they started working in this factory, not only did the factory take care of their food and lodging, they didn't have to worry about their livelihood at all. Now, they even received a total of 8 gold coins every month. Although 8 gold coins wasn't a lot, it could buy a lot of urgently needed supplies. If they brought it back to the tribe, it would be enough to improve the lives of their parents, wives, and children. Thinking of the happy faces of their families after getting those things, the hearts of these straightforward dwarves were filled with happiness. Thinking that this kind of life could only be enjoyed after joining this factory, the dwarves looked at Sue-E with even more gratitude and respect. Compared to the dwarves, the wages of the students hired from Baron Ricto Magic Academy were a bit lower, only being around 5 to 6 gold coins a month. The reason why they had this kind of wage was because they were still students, so their working hours were limited. Naturally, they couldn't compare to the dwarves who worked all day in a magic machine workshop. The The second reason was that their work was just simple magic arrays. Although it was related to magic, it was just simple repetitive work. The technical content wasn't high, so naturally their wages weren't that high. Sui was a bit worried at first that these students would feel unbalanced when they saw that other people's wages were higher than theirs. But after these students received their wages, they all revealed incomparably happy looks, not revealing a single trace of dissatisfaction. Even Oren, who came from a noble family, had a crooked smile on his face when he received his trivial 6 gold coin salary. It was like it wasn't 6 gold coins, but rather 600 gold coins. Sui thought about it and couldn't help smiling. Actually, the reaction of the students wasn't wrong. They were still students in the end, so being able to earn wages through their own work was already enough to make them feel pleasantly surprised. Not to mention that 5 or 6 gold coins was already considered quite a bit for them. It had to be known that the tuition fee of Baron Ricto Magic Academy was only 25 gold coins a semester. This meant that as long as they kept working, these students could rely on their own hard work to pay for their tuition. For these students, who were mostly from ordinary or even poor families, this would greatly reduce the burden on their families. Presumably, their parents would be very satisfied after knowing about this. After giving out the wages to the students, there was still a group of workers who hadn't received their wages yet, which were the 100 slaves. But the wages of these 100 slaves had troubled Sui for a while. According to normal logic, since these slaves worked in the factory, they should be given wages. But slaves were slaves in the end. Even if Sui wasn't willing to accept this fact, he had to admit that slaves didn't have any status in the signs. In a normal situation, no one would agree to giving slaves wages. The more important reason was that these slaves were still in the hands of Viscount Leslie, so Sui was only borrowing them. Even if Sui gave them wages, it should be given to Viscount Leslie. As for whether Viscount Leslie was willing to give them wages, it would depend on whether he was happy or not. So Sui and Heinz discussed this for a while in front of Seabass. In the end, they decided not to give the slaves any money and would give them benefits instead. Since it was still summer, Sui gave each slave a second-generation variable speed magic fan. Other than that, he gave each slave a Banta City Tailor Store coupon. With this coupon, these slaves could have a set of clothes made by Medigen's Tailor Store. The total price didn't exceed 1 gold coin. Other than this, there were some fruits and meat, as well as some daily necessities. With all the benefits added together, it was worth around 4 gold coins. According to Sui's thoughts, these slaves should have a monthly wage of at least 6 gold coins, so the benefits should be a bit higher. But this idea was stopped by Heinz. No matter what, these slaves belonged to Viscount Leslie. If Sui gave them too many benefits, it was inevitable that Viscount Leslie would have some special thoughts. Even if it was just these benefits that Sui thought were very simple, it was actually a taboo matter. These slaves watched the dwarves, and students received their wages from the side. Although they were filled with envy, they knew that with their identities as slaves, it was impossible for them to receive a wage like them. So they just honestly watched and didn't say anything. Actually, they were already very satisfied with their current lives. Since they came to this factory, not only did they not receive any beatings, they could also enjoy 3 sumptuous meals and didn't even need to worry about being hungry. Although they had work to do each day, compared to the heavy work they did under Viscount Leslie, it was much easier. Not to mention that they only worked for a short 8 hours each day. There was no extra work for them other than that. Even last time when they were lacking manpower to repair the road, Sui had them help out and gave each slave an extra pound of meat as compensation. It could be said that the current life was something that these slaves had only dreamed of before. They never thought that there would be a day when they could live such a comfortable life. If possible, they really wanted Viscount Leslie to sell them to Sui. Following under this master's name was probably the best destination in every slave's heart. So when Seabass announced that the slaves could receive their benefits, the slaves were all stunned. Benefits? What was that? Was it for us? Only when Seabass raised his voice and called out a slave's name did the slaves confirm that they hadn't heard wrong. The slave that was called out came in front of Seabass in a trembling voice. Hines smiled as he placed a magic fan, a clothing voucher, and other benefits into his hand. That slave looked at the things in his hand in a daze for a while, before he suddenly broke out in laughter. However, his eyes couldn't help tearing up as he sobbed. He didn't know what to say for a while. Seeing this scene, Sui couldn't help giving a soft sigh. This damn slavery system, it really should have been eliminated as soon as possible. After giving out the benefits of 100 slaves with great difficulty, Sui loudly announced that they would take the afternoon off, which instantly created another round of thunderous cheers. Now that they had their wages, whether it was the dwarves or the students, which one of them didn't want to go out and show off? Of course, they couldn't wait any longer. Sui announcing the holiday at this time was simply aiming at their itch, instantly filling their hearts with prestige. Seeing the several dozen students rushing out while cheering, even Oren wasn't caught in the middle without a single exception, Sui couldn't help smiling. This situation reminded him of the days when he was in university, when he and his classmates in the dormitory would run wild outside the school. Looking back, the dwarves were also leaving in groups, leaving behind the slaves who didn't know what to do. Sui thought for a bit before pulling Hines to a corner. Hines, start recruiting workers. Chapter 44. Perhaps it was because the gods had finally received their wages, but right after noon, a torrential rain that hadn't arrived for a long time came crashing down. The pinky-sized raindrops not only hurt when they fell on their bodies, they also made muffled, thumping sounds when they fell onto the thick wooden roof. This is the first time it's raining this much. Will it leak? Sui looked up and knit his brows as he looked at the roof with a worried look. It might leak a bit, but it shouldn't be a big problem. Hines on the side replied without thinking. The outside was already completely dark because of the sudden torrential rain, and one couldn't see anything more than 10 meters away from the window. In this workshop, the workers had already left, and there was only Sui, Hines, Seabass, and Camby left, making it seem incomparably empty and quiet. The sound of the giant raindrops hitting the roof reverberated through the workshop, just like the sound of a drum. No, leaking rain is a big problem. Sui shook his head. Hines, the machines we make here are all precision machines. If they are caught in the rain, they will rust if light, and the magic array inside will be damaged if heavy, causing the entire machine to break. So we have to pay attention to this problem. Hines helplessly looked up. It can't be that bad, right? These are all iron fellows. There isn't a problem if they get caught in the rain. The dwarf Camby also looked at Sui with a confused look, not understanding why he was making such a big fuss over a minor issue. As the authoritative dwarf master blacksmith, Camby had made more iron weapons than Sui in his life, so he didn't think that those black iron fellows would die because of a bit of rain. Only Seabass was the same as usual, not having any changes in his expression. Sui was also very helpless. Not to mention stainless steel, there wasn't even any real steel in this world. As for the rust prevention technology, it was incomparably simple, causing the lifespan of many iron weapons to be greatly reduced. Looking back at the finished magic fans in the corner of the workshop, Sui shook his head. There was no other way. He was only a mechanical engineer. Although he had some understanding of materials, he wasn't that proficient, so he couldn't take out the complete formula for plastic. Otherwise, if he could make the outer shell of the magic fan with plastic, not only would it prevent rust, it would also greatly reduce the weight of the magic fan. It would also make it more beautiful. And the most important thing was that it would greatly reduce the cost. When the time came, the profits would be even higher. It was a good thing that when designing these magic machines, Sui had already considered the problem of waterproofing. He had made the core components waterproof, so it wouldn't be that easy to damage them. Moreover, magic arrays were created using special magic materials. Once a magic array was created, unless the materials attached to the magic array were destroyed, the magic array itself would be very difficult to destroy. Hence, there was no need to worry too much about this. Even if we don't talk about these products, these workshops still need to be renovated in the future. Otherwise, once the rain leaks seriously, Even the workers' production will be greatly affected. Sue still insisted on his opinion. Heinz, arrange it as soon as possible. Seeing that Sue insisted, Heinz could only agree with a nod. All right, let's put this problem aside for now. Were we just now? Sue then said. As the main managers of the company, the four of them had stayed behind after the workers left to hold a meeting. Other than summarizing the company's operations from last month, they were also planning the company's future development and work arrangements. Canby said that their work in the magic machine workshop was going smoothly, but there were many dwarves who complained that their work was too idle and there was nothing to do. Heinz replied, "That's right. There were many brothers who said that they didn't do much work and receive that much money each month, so it was quite embarrassing." Canby scratched his head and said this with an embarrassed smile. Sooty couldn't help smiling. These dwarves really were simple and honest. They weren't willing to work so leisurely and actually complained that their wages were too high. Canby, tell them to be assured. Your work isn't that heavy right now because those fellows outside haven't realized the importance of the magic machines yet. You just need to wait a bit. When the Farsac Chamber of Commerce's factory in Saltan City is finished, I can guarantee that there will be large amounts of orders for the magic machines. When the time comes, don't blame them for being too busy with work. Canby revealed a grin and waved his hand in an uncaring manner. How could that be? We dwarves are the ones who can endure hardship the most. As long as there's wine to drink, there's no problem doing as much work as we want. Speaking of drinking, Canby, although I know that you dwarves love wine, it's best not to drink when you're working. This is because the magic machines you make need high precision, and a single mistake can cause a large problem. So you have to stay awake when you're working. Our new flyer is still a small company, so we have to pay attention to the quality of our products during our development. Canby nodded. All right, I'll give them a warning later. They can only drink when they're off work. They're not allowed to drink when they're working. Sue knit his brows. Just a warning isn't enough. How about this? We'll set a system. If they're found to be drinking during work, they'll be fined 50 silver coins for the first time, 2 gold coins for the second time, and a month's salary will be deducted for the third time. Isn't this too serious? Canby said in a stunned voice. Chairman, those brothers are all addicted to wine. I'm afraid that once this rule is set, a bunch of them won't be able to get their salaries. I know that you're addicted to wine, so I'm setting this strict requirement. Sooty said with a serious look. No matter what, the quality of the products is the most important. If there's a problem with the products because of personal reasons, then they should be punished for it. Seeing how serious Sooty was, Canby could only helplessly lower his head. All right, I'll make it clear to them. Of course, this rule isn't just for the Dwarven brothers. Heinz, this rule is also valid for the Magic Fan Workshop. Heinz, of course, knew that Sooty was doing this for the sake of balance, so he immediately agreed. Canby, you don't need to be so dejected. Other than the punishment, there are also rewards. Go and tell the Dwarven brothers that as long as they complete their tasks well, I can use the company's name to place a large order with the Sachi Manor. If they want to drink wine in the future, they can just apply to the company based on their achievements. Canby's eyes immediately lit up. Is this true? Would I joke at this time? The dejected look on Canby's face disappeared as he broke out in laughter. Good, this is good. I dare guarantee that once the brothers hear that they can drink wine from the Sachi Manor, they will be filled with energy. That's good. Sooty nodded with a faint smile before turning to Heinz to say, All right, now that we've finished talking about the Magic Machine Workshop, it's time to talk about the Magic Fan Workshop. Heinz stuck out his chest and proudly said, There's no need to worry about our Magic Fan Workshop. Those slave workers are very obedient. They definitely won't cause any trouble. Canby immediately glared at Heinz. This was clearly pointing at the mulberry tree and cursing the locust tree. Sooty waved his hand with a bitter smile. Although the dwarves had been working here for a month, there was still a gap between them and humans because of their race. Only this gap would take a long time to disappear, so it couldn't be rushed. No, Heinz, the problem with the Magic Machine Workshop isn't with the workers. Rather, it's with the production. Heinz was stunned. There's no problem with the production. Everything is going very smoothly. My meaning isn't whether the production is going smoothly or not. Rather, have you thought of a very important problem? That is that the production of the magic fans might be stopped? Ah, Heinz was shocked and stood up abruptly. Stop production? Why stop production? The magic fans are selling this well. Why stop production? Canby and Seabass on the side also looked at Sue E with confused looks. Just the second-generation variable speed magic fan had been produced for less than half a month and had already sold over 6,000 units, bringing a large profit of over 5,000 gold coins to the company. Why was it that with such good sales, Sue E suddenly said that they would stop production? Sue E pointed out the window, because summer is about to pass. The three of them instantly understood. That's right, it was already the middle of August and summer was about to pass. The hot weather wouldn't last for more than a month. Once the weather was no longer hot, people's desire to buy magic fans would greatly decrease, even approaching zero. At that time, no one would buy magic fans, so naturally there would be no need to continue producing them. As soon as he realized this, Heinz immediately panicked. Then what do we do? Sue E, the magic fan is our most profitable thing right now. If we stop production, what will we rely on to earn money? Quickly think of a way. Otherwise, we can't just wait until next summer to start production, right? But next summer, there will be all kinds of magic fans that will appear, and we won't be able to sell as well as we did at that time. Canby pulled Heinz back. What are you anxious for? Since the chairman has raised this problem, it means that he already has a solution. You just need to listen. Heinz shook off Canby and angrily said, Of course you're not anxious. Your magic machine workshop always has work to do. What about us? After saying this, he turned to Sue E and urged him, Sue E, do you have a solution? Quickly say it if you do. I'm about to die from anxiety. Sue E patted his shoulder, signaling him to calm down. Of course there is a solution. Since we can't produce magic fans, we can change to a product that isn't affected by the seasons. Hearing that there was hope, Heinz's eyes immediately lit up. What product? Sue E laughed and took out a blueprint from his chest. Here, it's this. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.